Everybody, welcome. I'm Aurora. This class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. This is level 1, lesson 16, and it's called The Death Journey. Of course, every semester I teach about this, and I never wish to be repetitive, so I'm always going to add new things to it. Hi, hola, Pedro. Good to see you here. Thank you. So one of the main things that I emphasize in this particular lesson is, hold on, I gotta press buttons here, then I'll get to focus. The concept of death as an impersonal force, something that is not out to get you, but is a flowing membrane of energy. I know this is red and I'm wearing red and can barely even see it, but there we go. If I put it kind of over here or against here we go. This part over here to refresh is the membrane of death. And that is a no man's land, no person zone, a place where you're not supposed to go, a place where consciousness is not supposed to go. It is the end result of a series of bad math or incorrect thought forms or incorrect behavior patterns. And this is impersonal. That means there's no arguments. There's really no negotiations. There's really no justifications. There's really no, but wait, or explanations. There's no explanations or, pauses with the finger. There's no way to get around it. If you end up on the membrane of death, you have done something very incorrect. And then it is your choice as a soul or a portion of consciousness to choose how you respond to that negative information. So here I lightheartedly personify it as receiving a clipboard that has like the red X's, like your math homework from the cosmic math teacher that tells you, these are all the things that you did wrong. Here, please internalize this and then do better. And then, of course, it's up to you whether you do that. The concept of this shape is that there's no possible way to game the system, although we are living within a very hijacked or distorted or corroded system where you're not supposed to be able to go to the membrane of death and then just hang out there and spend I don't want to say spend time because there is no time there. It's not a place where time is passing, and you're not really existing either, but to have some formfulness and not be facing the extreme retribution for your life choices and to be empowered, like all of those things that I'm going to make a joke, like that does not compute, like that does not make sense. So let's say it better. To characterize the membrane of death, it is not a place of empowerment. It is not a place of inhabitation. It is also not a place of volition. You don't go there and then be like, now I have a bunch of volition. I'm going to go places from here. And this is really part of the challenge when we face with the putis, those pesky occupiers of the interstices. These are not trapped consciousnesses, but residual consciousnesses that actually placed themselves in this very strange, reverberative, or like a greasy, slimy residue situation. And I don't characterize it as a terrible accident, like, oh, they're poor damsels and they got stuck there, because they have efforted or created some volition to remain in their position. And so it's, again, hard to characterize how they are feeling in this moment, as they're not experiencers of time or of linearity. And so I don't want to falsely personify them or give them thoughts or feelings that I cannot know that they have. But behaviorally, it is evident that through their siphoning of energy, they are making some effort and decision or motivation, without better words, to remain in their position, as opposed to face the music, recognize that they have made huge mistakes. And then what happens in a pristine system is the energy flows, that consciousness is dissolved, and it must go on its journey. So you guys know that this or vortex is a simplification of a rounded shape. So there's actually a whole circle that goes out here and a circle that goes out here. And the flow of energy is a figure 8 from the center out to the periphery, and then back to the center, and then out to the periphery. And these are how these various membranes are created. So I talk about your life as being this quadrant over here, but really your life is comprised by many time vortices, where you're having many concurrent life experiences, and all of these have membranes that contain them, and that there's not a way to get beyond that membrane system without being in proper alignment. So I just showed you one of the major energy patterns is the figure eight going around like this, but a separate energy pattern is the one that is linear, a straight line that goes up and down like this. And it actually reflects back and forth. I have to use both hands. So if that straight line is going up and down like this, it's like a laser. And here's one mirror, and then here's another mirror. And the beam of light bounces back and forth. And those are two singularity points. But I'm going to confuse you because that line that is like this actually does have a curve, but the curve is enormous and larger than you can perceive in this moment. So just treat it like a straight line. Okay. So that line is your ascension timeline. And that is who you are when your thought patterns and your behavior patterns and even your body form is in the correct shape to be on that timeline. Again, there's not a way to game the system, pretend and be like, put on a disguise and be like, this is my ascended master disguise. Like I belong here. Like it's not something that can be impostered. I have a better word. But the evidence of it is very clear. Like it's your behavior and the way that you use your energy. And also it is a skill set. And the skill set is required to, I want to say stay aloft, but I also want to say remain at a fast pace. So like getting your chakras moving at a fast pace, getting the bicycle wheels of your inner being and your time being moving at a fast pace, and then also integrating that with the double Dutch jump ropes of the larger time space continuum of consciousness. All of those are skills, like being a musician. And there's not a way to fake being a musician. Like even if you put on a powdered wig, like you would not be Mozart. Like even if you put on a disguise and pretended to be him, the evidence is in your playing and in your capacity to create that music. So being an ascended master is not something that can be faked. And what some of the new information that I'd like to share with you. I haven't really spoken about this, and maybe it's better suited to one of the lessons that's about ascended mastery. But this morning I was thinking, like, yeah, I have to tell you about this because recently, because I do a lot of cosmic cleanup. Recently, I've been cleaning up an area that has felt very like grimy in the cosmic force field, is what I'm talking about. An area of consciousness that I would say is an area of like false ascended masters. False ascended mastery. And these are people who did not actually ascend, but maybe they believed their own hype, like they believed their own story. Some of them are like spiritual gurus or self-proclaimed gurus who think that they have ascended, but they have really not. They are in a type of pocket world or more like a cul-de-sac, like an area of consciousness where there is a ceiling that they cannot move beyond. And in order for them to move beyond, they would have to release their self story that they are not actually ascended. And I think that they are also parallel to these occupiers of the interstices. So they're not exactly the same because the occupiers of the interstices are like the original predators or archons or them and their offspring and demons who sometimes have not even been alive or in existence. But then also there are some presences in the membrane of death who are people who have been in existence and then died, and they are still in their process of resolving their crapola. And some of these guys that are, they were trained in life to believe in their own grandiosity. And then when they died, they did not release that story. Look at the clipboard and recognize what they have done wrong. They are still laboring under a delusion. And some of them are also dangerous afterlife residues because they try to influence people who are still alive. So some of these false teachers tried to influence people when they were alive, like they gave bad advice while they were alive, died, thought that they ascended, and then they sometimes return from beyond the grave through channeling or ghost dreams or whatever in order to give even more bad advice. And they give bad advice because they're trying to get more recruits onto the membrane of death, because I've already taught you about the economy of hell. So economy of hell is technically lesson 18 That's a couple of lessons ahead of where we presently are, and that usually is the culmination of the semester. So I told everyone a couple of weeks ago, because I'm busy preparing for my upcoming Flying Rainbow Lasagna retreat. And that will also be a giant energy portal. So get ready and dance where you are when we do this. Dance with us from your space-time location. We're going to do lesson 18 in January after I return. And I'll probably have to take a extra week, like after I travel, to kind of get my energy back together and kind of restabilize and reconfigure myself. So that would probably be like the week of January 15th or something like that. Okay, so just know that we'll explore this topic more, but the sense of what sustains consciousness in the membrane of death that is not supposed to be there. Like here's a consciousness, whatever it is, something that exists, and then here's the flowing membrane energy, and the energy is a solvent. Just like if enough water flows against a stone, it will wear away the stone. The energy of the membrane of death is actually love. And it is like a very focused, laser-like love energy that is meant to corrode away bullshit and things that are lies. And if a consciousness or cognitive presence is structured with many lies, false information, false light, untruth, when it gets to the membrane of death, it really should be just incinerated. Like there should be so much force moving against the lies and so much friction that it should be incinerated, and it should also be very uncomfortable. So it should be a motivation to release attachment to lies and false light if you're doing the learning process correctly. But I have told you about the existence of the sweat hogs, those naughty students who refuse to learn, much like the hilarious characters from the old TV show Welcome Back, Kotter, the bad students who sit there with a bad look on their face in class and they're like, we are not learning here. And that is literally what the Pooties are. So Pedro had already asked me at an earlier time whether demons and Pooties are the same, and they're actually slightly different, but they are neighbors and they live in the same neighborhood. And they also both harass the living and have a direct diminishment of your experience, both moment to moment experience, divine connection, and possibilities of ascension. So, this class, The Death Journey, is all about what happens when people die. But when I tell you about this in the context of history and where you are in human development right now, my big message for you is basically do not die, right? I've spoken at length about why I don't condone or support religions that I call death cults, because they give you an erroneous false light teaching that is really grooming, like these greasy, dirty, false ascended masters that tell you that liberation lies through death, but it does not. So please do not listen to that. I just told you something I don't want you to internalize, but liberation liberation is not experienced by going through death or going to the membrane of death. So once again, if you find yourself dead, you have done something wrong and you must learn from it and have a willingness to change your trajectory. I want to say your inner program, but it is, of course, not a computer program, but to be willing to release the things that did not work and try again. That is what a good soul does. A good soul, a good portion of consciousness, honestly and authentically looks at one's mistakes and is like, that is what I regret. That looks really bad. That was something that harmed my masterpiece, and then has an earnest desire to fix it and do better. And my other reportage is that at other times in human history, ascended teachers or gurus might have been accurate if they taught you about what is going to happen after your death or what are your prospects in dying. But all bets are off, not only since October in 2001 when I flying over Lasagna for the first time, but also everything has been renegotiated and recalibrated. So you should no longer be having an inner expectation that you should um, die. It is not necessary for you to die. Okay. And I'll also say, like, I can't touch the computer anymore right now. So please forgive me. Like, people are coming in and out of the meeting and I have to touch the computer. And every time I do, it drains me. I can't do it. All right. So if anybody else comes in, just like you'll be in the waiting room for a long time. All right. Um, apologies. I have to set that boundary. So let's also talk about death and death as the afterlife as a cognitive echo and your cognitive training during life. So death and the experience of afterlife is heavily influenced by your cultural programming or what you learned during your life, what you expect. So not only is your personality carried forward in an echo after you die, and your behavior patterns and tendencies carried forward, but also your viewpoint of the world, your story of how the world came into being, your conception of what is God, your conception of what is good, and your conception of what is going to happen to your consciousness. But it's not fair to say that you can cheat code. Like cheat code. What is cheat code, Aurora? Cheat code is a shorthand to talk about when people think, sometimes it's dark magicians that try to do this. Like if you just think about something or plant a seed in a person's mind that is a generator, then they'll just bring it into being. Or like if you just speak about something, then you'll bring it into being. And there's a lot more than that. Like if I just would ever talk about cupcakes or purple umbrellas, like I am certainly generating something with my, words and with phonemes, but that's not the same as bringing something into being. So it's the cheat code for those who don't know how to manifest. They're like, I'm going to just like prompt that guy over there to manifest it for me. So please know that dark side does this a lot. Dark side does not actually know how to manifest, but they want to cheat code, which is put a suggestion into your mind, and then you will oblige them with the manifestation of the thing that the other side wanted. So please be very, very aware of your own tendencies. Don't get hijacked. Don't be used and exploited by someone else that is trying to cheat code. And also, don't you do it either. So, cheat code when it comes to what happens in your afterlife and what are your prospects for after you die. And some people think that it's enough to just be like, oh yeah, like I'm just gonna envision a paradise, and that will bring like they think they can hack the system. Or let's say better than hacking the system or gaming the system. They think that they can exploit the system and receive rewards or things that they do not actually deserve. And when that happens, that's puts the system out of balance. Like everything that I'm teaching about death today should be looked at from the abstract point of view, which is that energy needs to be put back into balance. And when people hit the membrane of death, it's because they have done something that is energetically incorrect. And then you have to rectify it. And when you are an ascended master, it means you do not die. And also you don't have I don't want to say that you don't have debts or you don't have something that you have to rectify, but like your math works out is a better way of saying it. And because there's also a lot of cultural baggage about what the process of ascension is. Today, I have to just admit on a personal level, I'm very disgusted with the way that the planetary ascension is going on. It feels like such a wasted ascension with so much time spent in picking up human garbage, like just clearing out garbage and trash and not having a genuine uplifting experience of divine connection and creativity and unfoldment and beauty and artistry. So just know like you guys are getting cheated so badly. And I was fighting a lot against the ones who are responsible for this, travesty. And I was telling them like, yeah, like if these people knew how badly they were being cheated by these horrible, evil miscreants over here, and how much your ascension was, diminished in its quality. Like you would be incredibly angry. And this is also fair. Like when you're an ascended master, it does not mean that you're like some vanilla pablum that's just like la la la, everything's fine, like a lobotomized idiot. You're not a lobotomized idiot. You would be enraged if you guys right now were in your ascended master's personality state of empowerment and you looked at what was happening with ascension around you. You would be effing pissed and incredibly enraged at how much is being stolen, misappropriated, misdirected, and time wasted. And it's time you cannot recover. Time wasting is the most cringeful, worst torment that I'm seeing here because it's opportunities and things that you should be doing that you're not doing. It's like, when you're 5 years old and you're like, yeah, like this kid needs whatever, like a child's guitar to play or something, or I've talked about Barbie Dreamhouse. You need something to learn on when you're coming up in life, and then you don't need that like 10 years later or 50 years later. It's like, here's your toy guitar so you can learn to play now. You're like, you're 65 years old at this point. You don't need a toy guitar. Like, it's ridiculous. That is what is happening with you guys. So truly, I would encourage you to expand and identify with and embody your ascended master's personality as much as you can in this moment, and just rage, apply all of that righteous anger to the situation, so that that way you can reclaim whatever remaining moments of value are here for you to actually experience while you're in your beautiful biological form, and while our world is in its present level of development. So please know, like, yes, because I also have so much friction against, agitation against the realm of false ascended masters, where like these are guys who died. A lot of them promote the sense of you have to die as well. A lot of them promote the sense of nonviolence, which I've already ranted against that. And then also some of them do harmfully influence the living in terms of giving them whatever prophetic dreams, channelings, or something like that. I'm talking about like false gurus who are not genuinely ascended, and then who are giving the worst guidance, that are basically just going to entrap the next generation to go to the spiritual dead end, which is why I call it a cul-de-sac, where these guys went. They didn't go to a real place of empowerment. If they did, they would be kicking ass right now. They wouldn't be floating in a sea of vanilla milkshake and be like, la, 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 we can't do anything. That's the problem, is false ascended masters who did not actually reach their true levels of freedom and empowerment. And if they did, you would have a lot more help and assistance right now. And also, please do not look to them as a success story. They did not finish the marathon. Like, you guys are going to finish the marathon. These guys are on the sidelines, and they either got too tired, or they twisted their ankle, or their shoe fell off, and they are not running anymore. And they're standing there as if they are success stories that finished the marathon, and they didn't. So please know about that. That is what's going on. And then also, what about the people who have finished the marathon? Because there's an enormous, you're not the first. So when you're in your ego and you haven't ascended yet, then you don't know this, but it's like, it's very important and special that you do it, but you're not the first. And many, many others have done this. And that fact does not take away from the specialness of what you are and what you're going through. Ascension is very much like a celebration of who you are. So death, so what's wrong with death is that people look at death as if it's like your birthday, like happy death day to you, and that you're going to emerge into some wonderful heavenly fantasy land. Like, they kind of did this with Charlie Kirk in the moments, the psychotic grief MK Ultra moments after he died, and people are sharing all of these pictures of like Jesus is hugging him. Hug it in, bro. Hug it in, and getting into heaven. And these are worthy of ridicule, and they are also very unhealthy fantasies. And the fantasies encourage people to throw away their lives, and also to have a diminished quality of life. That means that you're not fighting for your life, because you're more fighting for the sense of a reward in an afterlife. And all of that goes back to ancient Egypt, because there was a time before the Bible was written, and the all-pervasive concept of your world. And what people believed was the ancient funerary rites of the part of the world at that time, and a papyrus that is known as the Book of Coming Forth into Day. It's not actually the Book of the Dead. So there are many cultural presumptions around death. And when the Europeans found the hieroglyphics in the 1800s, and they were attempting to make some kind of a translation that was comprehensible to them and culturally comprehensible to them, they really projected a lot through their ethnocentric viewpoint of a fear of death. And the Egyptians did not fear death, and they really embraced it. They looked at their whole entire waking biological world as a training regimen and a preparation for the day that they would die. And this is also true of a couple of other cultures that we know of, and many others that just had oral traditions and they're not written about and we don't know about them. So I bring up the Tibetan Buddhists and the Egyptians because they both have books and they both represent vestigial traces from the antediluvian worldwide, experience when we were in Atlantis, or when we are in Atlantis. And that's a time when death does not even exist. And then we came out of that time as what humans know as the fall from grace, which was a reduction in consciousness and also a genetic modification that appeared to make death necessary or inevitable, but it really was a destabilization of this whole chakra shape inside of you that meant that you had to start at the periphery and begin to work your way in to fine tune your journey and be able to not die. So you are having to play every wrong note on the piano before you actually get to the central core timeline where you actually are doing the right things. But that does not mean that you were intended to play all of those wrong notes. Those wrong notes are not a necessary learning process for your soul. In fact, it's very wearing and very wearying to the fabric of time itself, which really wants us to go directly to playing the right notes. Playing the right notes is possible when you are literate and can read music. So the guys that play like Mozart, like they are not guessing. They know the right notes to play because they have a musical score in front of them that tells them what to play and even what is coming up, like what's coming up in the next part of the song and what should you prepare for. And there's even a conductor telling them how fast to go and coordinating everyone. Okay. So in Atlantis, we have not only the capacity to read the musical score of what we are to do in each moment in our life, but there's an amazing connection to the great conductor. And the great conductor is really divine consciousness. It's something that is present in our planet, it's present in our sun, it's present in really pure light, in the abstraction of light, and it's inescapable. And it's so prevalent and so all pervasive that it's hard to even comprehend like what they would have to do in order to block it out. But you're in the world where they did the stuff to block it out. So it's like, I've been laughing about it, it's terrible. Genetic modification, solar, distortions around the atmosphere of your planet, and also cognitive disruptions that make it more difficult for people to open themselves up to this divine connection and then know what it is when you actually connect with it. I am going to sound really terrible because I'm warning you today about false ascended masters and the impact that they might have as false gurus trying to mislead potential disciples. But also, I have to warn you against, I hope it doesn't slip away. It's so difficult sometimes for me to keep my mind focused. It will come back to me. I very, very greatly apologize and thank you, as always, for understanding how difficult it is sometimes for me to stay focused on the things that are important. It will come back. Terrible. All right. Keep moving forward. Thank you very much. Um, sorry. And now I'm like trying to return to my whole get back in the groove of everything, because it is a warning against prayerfulness and meditation. That's because it was important stuff. Try to mind with me because it was important. I today am going to warn you against prayerfulness and meditation. You're like, Aurora, like, isn't that what spiritual people are supposed to do? Aren't we supposed to be prayerful and meditate? And I'm like, I think that you are. And also, I warn a lot about things that are problematic in this world where there are force fields and frequencies that are artificial and also implanted micromachinery that is artificial. I'm doing a lot behind the scenes, as always. Look in my comic book to learn more about it, to reduce these technological and transhumanist limitations and blockades between yourself and your divine connection. But there's still dark magic. There's still stuff that's been going on for a long amount of time that does not involve technology, but involves more the magic or the technology of consciousness itself and the distortions of consciousness, and taking people away from their divine connection or from their spiritual ascendancy through different levels of bad ideas, erroneous frequencies, wrong like postures or worldviews. And so ordinarily everyone thinks like, well, what's the answer? The answer is prayer. But I have taught you how some prayers that are like repetitive mantras and saying the Hail Mary over and over are really not comfortable and not natural ways to use your mind. Like it's not actually good to repeat things over and over in your mind. Like it's a sign of mental distress, like when birds pull out their own feathers. Like it's not okay. It's not okay. And when people are in cognitive distress and then they repeat their Hail Marys or their mantras or their things over and over, like it's not necessarily a connection to God. The verbalization actually blocks out divinity. It is a cry for help, but it doesn't necessarily mean that God is hearing you and being like, okay, I recognize that you're having a problem. Like it's more like it's a self-soothing behavior. That is also a cry of distress, but it is not actually something that is having an impact on reality. So imagine you're whatever in a kitchen and there's like the garbage disposal is going crazy and garbage is coming out all over and the sink is going and then like the dishwasher is exploding and all these things and you're just like very upset and you're just like Hail Mary full of grace and you're like saying all these things, saying the rosary over and over, rocking back and forth. And it's like, well, that is not going to fix things. What fixes things is like actually like calling the plumber, like getting a wrench, turning off the water, doing something. So the problem with the self-soothing prayer and intercessional prayer is that it is not an action that necessarily connects to reality and is problem solving. And when people are trained to go into that as their go-to instead of self-empowerment and problem solving, then it means that you have a lot of things that exist in you should clean them up and fix them, but instead people just pray about them, hoping and wishing that something larger than them will fix them. But actually you can pray, but then you must also fix it in some way. But also sometimes when people pray, it is intercessional or gratitude prayers that are completely hijacked at this point, where they are stolen and yoinked harvested by something that is unwholesome and not true divinity that stands between you, the prayer, and real divinity. And it holds itself as an imposter god, as like, oh, thanks for making all that food for me. Yoink, I'll take it from me. It's like, no, I cooked that food for real God. It was actually prayers for real God, not for you. So for the naive prayer, it is necessary to learn not to have your energy harvested and to protect it and make certain that it goes to the person that you're truly devoted to. So if you pray for a loved one, it should actually go to that loved one. And if you pray to divine consciousness, it should actually reach that divine consciousness, not have your messages taken, stolen, or your mail read by someone else who's not the intended recipient, right? So how do you make sure that your prayers aren't being hijacked? And how do you make sure you're not being harvested? Like all of these things that are prayer chains that are not naturally arising behaviors, that's actually harvesting of prayers. It's actually not that good to do that. It's terrible because people want to be empowered. So they're like, I will join a prayer chain and be like, I'm going to pray for whatever. And they'll send you like a picture, like a kitten is stuck in a tree, pray for the kitten or whatever, a child in a hospital bed. Like these can be completely fictional situations. And that means that your prayers are being impulsed or you're being like milked or squeezed for prayers. And then that is energy that is not actually going to a real person, but it's being taken from you in some way. All of that is coercive, very disgusting, very non-authentic. You would not participate in that if you had enough inner vision to see what was going on. It is an assault on your naivete and your desire to pray and be spiritually empowered. So please know that those are concerted agendas that are run by evil ones to, again, utilize and exploit people that are at an earlier level of their spiritual development. And there are also like spiritual traditions that prey upon the naivete of the early aspirant. And this has been going on throughout time. And that's where the occupiers of that cul-de-sac and world of the dead end, where you're not really going to get any further. Like there's been many mystery schools and mystery traditions. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly, mystery traditions. And a lot of these were holding esoteric information throughout the years so that it would not be destroyed by some type of ongoing inquisition from the regime. Just going to drink some tea, hydrate. So some of the information from antediluvian, high civilization in our world is incredibly empowering and will actually help people not to be exploited, not only throughout their lives, but throughout their spiritual journey, and also not be to help you to avoid being exploited when you actually die. And so a lot of that information was suppressed because you understand there's been like earthly regimes and then also non-earthly consciousness reduction regimes, whatever is the power structure of the hierarchy of the membrane of death or of the world of archons or of the world of the lower astral. I don't have better descriptive terms, but it helps you to know where I'm talking about. The powers that were, they have badly hijacked the death process. So when I talk to you about consciousness reaching the membrane of death and then having an assessment, doing a self-assessment, and then changing it, re-entering the time stream and changing its trajectory in light of that self-assessment, that does not recognize enough the distortion technologies that are applied to souls in their life journey between lives. And so, first of all, it's not a linear journey. You really are experiencing all of these lives concurrently. The time in between when you're in the body and then in another body is a very special time. I wanted to say to you, and this is not part of my notes, for a very long amount of time, due to the genetic disruptions in human bodies, that was the only time that people could get a view of what is even going on. That it's been so distorted here that the only time that anybody gets any perspective up until this point was when people were dead and they were not in their bodies. It's like being in the body is so inherently distortive that in order for you to know what the F is going on, you would have to get out of your body. And that would be through, the moments of retrospection and introspection that happen upon death. And for some people, near-death experiences. And all of that is not the way that this system was designed. It was designed so that we could have those moments of clarity while you're in a body and you're healthy and it's still relevant. Yeah, because when you are dead and then you get this information, you are like, that is fascinating. I truly wish I had known that before. That information does not help me now. And that is also usually why good souls are like, hey, not only do I want to try harder and differently, but this is not fair. I should have known that before. Yes. And also when you are in your interim time, not in a physical body, but in your interim between or the time beyond time that connects lives in a consciousness fabric, you are very connected to God and to divinity. And divinity is also like, yes, I wish that I had been connected to you while you were in cellular life so that we could have had a closer, genuine cognitive relationship. And I think that this is also why some people exhibit a type of paroxysm of death, like not a love of death, but like a willingness to die. And it's very Groundhog's Day because that's like the only moment when they get a respite from the terror and not knowing the anxiety and fear of not knowing what is happening when they are submerged in time and in their body and they don't have a clear view of the context of the future or what is actually happening in time. And then death is this moment of peacefulness, divine connection, total clarity. And they're like, I like it here. I want to keep dying, to keep coming here. But it's like, no, you have not actually achieved what you need to achieve. What you need to do is get this feeling, but not die. That is the key information that I'm bringing to you in this particular curriculum. Yes, so you are not supposed to die. It is an aberrance that humans have become so focused on dying because it is a very sacrosanct moment. So the membrane of death is a flowing membrane, and it's comprised of, you could think of them as like individual moments, like a bead on a string, and that bead is the last moment of that timeline. Like each trajectory through the time field has a final moment, and that final moment is like the last frozen moment of your movie of your life where you're dying. I'm smiling because it's terrible, but it's a special moment. And it's like, okay, you were born here, and then you learned to ride a bike, and then this and this and this and this and this happened, and then here's where you got hit by a truck on the highway, and you died, and you're smashed up in a million pieces. And then that moment is frozen. And it really contains the implied trajectory of everything that came before it. And then that is one of the points, one of the data points that is on the membrane of death. And then you have many, many other timelines and potentials where you died in a slightly different way. And this is, not to make you obsessed with death, but it is a natural part of the structure of time that you have the viable timeline that you're on that contains correct math. And then you have the very many other peripheral or alternative versions of reality or versions of that day where you did not successfully stay alive, but where you instead died. And none of them are random either. So when I talk about those potentials and those math potentials, I've used the example before in this class. One time I was out for a walk with my dog, and we were on not the best road to walk upon. Like, it doesn't have a sidewalk. So we were kind of like walking next to some hedgerows, bushes next to the side of the road. And a car came like kind of close to us, but it kind of, went on by. And when it kind of went by, I remember thinking like, oh yeah, like that, if things had gone differently, our day would have been completely different. It would have been run over, we would have been squashed in a million pieces. And a very clear insight came to me. That was like, no, actually, there were no potential timelines where you got squashed into a million pieces by that car. And that it's erroneous to think that in every moment there are these perils of mortality, that actually the things that can kill you or that do kill you on certain timelines are very specific, not random, and not so prolific, I would say, or ubiquitous. They're very specific. So it's not like every time you're walking by the side of the road, every car is a death trap. And I want you to know this so that you don't walk around in all moments being like, oh no, death trap, death trap. Like, am I going to die? I'm going to die. And also you can release that fear and anxiety. And also please know that how to stay alive is very much about following your inner guidance, not just about avoiding perils, but in aligning with your joy. So the things that are guiding you incrementally towards being in this central core timeline are decisions about being your truest, authentic self and following the things that bring you joy, presuming, of course, that you're not a psychotic maniac and that the things that bring you joy is not like torturing puppies and kittens, because that would not be allowed. And no ascended master is like, oh, I'm like so ascended. I'm feeling so great while I'm torturing puppies and kittens. So please know that that is not what I'm talking about. It's socially positive activities. So when you are your ascended master self, you're here and you are following the correct music of reality, and you're following God's every command or motivation for what you're doing with your life, and you feel wonderful making the decisions that you make, and you have zero conflict or qualms. Actually, your ego is your ascended ego, and we need to talk about that. And your soul and your ego are completely integrated and happy and not in conflict and moving and propelling you. Your propulsion is like rowing a boat in the same direction. So many schools of thought also talk about not only the necessity of death, and they have this whole thing with guruhood, but they also have this whole thing with kill your ego, which I do not agree with, because there are some aspects of your ego and of yourself that are eternal. And so there's something called your ascended ego. I am my ascended ego. When I go through the solar portal, like, I'm still going to be me because I'm me. I am not a bunch of fake crap with a name stuck on it. And I'm going to come out the other side of the solar portal, and I'm still going to be me and remember me because I'm identifying with my truest aspects of self. I've been here and I have done this already. For those of you who are still learning and who are mastering this, the ascension ego is different than your temporal ego. Your temporal ego is like, oh yeah, that's my sense of self that I derive because I have this job, or I have this car, or I'm married to this guy, or I do this particular thing in human society. But that is not your forever self. Your forever self is who you are eternally and who you will always be, no matter if you are working for a different company, married to a different person, living in a different country, or shaped like a different body. All right. So there are some parts of you that are your ascension personality characteristics, and it's up to you as the artist of your life to determine which are those things, like make a separation, the eternal aspects of me versus the non-eternal aspects of me, and you release identification with the non-eternal aspects of self. And this is how you ascend. Like that's also deep spiritual teaching that is kind of like, well, yes, like if you want to if you want to exercise, like you just hold a weight and then move your arm like this. It's like technically, yes, but there's so much more to it than that. But yes, that is the essence of what ascension is. It's identification towards and focus towards the most essential aspects and eternal aspects of your personality and self, and away from the non-eternal aspects of self. And the process of death is meant to be a focuser of your awareness to take you from the general to the specific. So if you're on a journey where you're like coming out of this level of amnesia and you don't know what the heck is going on, you don't know who you are, and there's all these potentials for a description of self. And what you're doing through this process of moving from the periphery into the center is going from the parts that are only a very generalized description of you and not an accurate description of you, and then like a lens, the same way that like you focus a telescope lens, or like if you've ever gone to the eye doctor, they have those weird things and they focus lenses. You're focusing the lens of yourself until the light of your consciousness is completely, I'm going to say the word focus again, united into one central beam of who you are. And you're very, very clear on who you are and who you are not. And so these guys that are grimy, false ascended masters, like they have not effectively de-identified with certain things that are keeping them in that stasis holding pattern. And a lot of it has to do with their gurus before them and things that were passed down to them. At a certain point, you have to let go of all of that in order to be free. So the best analogy that I'm coming up with right now is if you had many other chefs, like you learned to cook from a whole line of chefs, and they all taught you like you always cook like this, and you do like this, and you do like this, like strict, like French chefs. All right, they are strict. And then you're moving into a time now when food will be completely redefined. Cooking will be completely redefined. What ingredients are available will be completely redefined. The type of stove and pan that you have will be completely redefined. And so you cannot simply go upon the training and the recipes that came from the chefs before you. The best thing you can do is internalize their lessons, their aesthetics, their values, their excellence, and then apply that to the new way of doing things. So this is true of like Christianity, of Hinduism, and of many, many other things. And I'm sorry, I'm upset at you guys because some stupid person is texting me while I'm in class, and it's a person that I know, and they know that I teach class right now. And it's so disruptive and very, very rude. So if you're in my life and you know me and you know that I teach class at 2 p.m. and I always turn off my phone, please do not text me during this time. I'm having so much difficulty with technology, with having to touch technology and with having to deal with these signals. Please respect me by not overloading me at this time. Thank you. And again, the people in this class do not need to hear that, but someone will actually get the message afterwards and they will stop doing this. Thank you. My face is in so much pain right now because you don't even know how much you are screwing up my life by doing that. We'll talk more about a telepathic society too, and being respectful of when you talk to people and send signals to people and are mentally connected to them. And that is also very, very important for you to learn about as you're going forward. Yeah, so basically the access is like, you don't have 100% access to a person's brain at all times. Just because you're in a telepathic society, there's important lessons for you to learn as you're going forward and becoming more civilized. Okay, so let's go back to talking about ancient Egypt and the quest for immortality, because we came from Atlantis where we're all like taking it for granted, almost not for granted, but like as a matter of course, like, of course I'm eternal. Of course I'm going to live for forever. Nobody died. Like nobody died. So it was never in question of whether you're going to be good enough to get into heaven. Like so much of human agitation right now and a sense of unworthiness, not only that famous portrait and the expulsion from Eden, telling you that you're not good enough, religious abuse that tells you that you are unworthy sinners and that you are not worthy of being in heaven, and um, other indoctrinations about your degradation, and then sell you the cure. We make the disease, then we sell you the cure. First, we will knock you down and make you think that you are the worst, lowly, wormy scum in the world. Then we will sell you the uplift program that will help to bring you up. That is not correct. That is not healthy. And I do define that as spiritual waterboarding. So, waterboarding is what the CIA did or does to naughty people, to domestic terrorists. Terrorists, my best George W. Bush impression. You know, waterboard those terrorists. Um, but it's definitely against the Geneva Convention. And it's when they kind of semi-drown a person, they pour a lot of water into their mouth, and then the person can hardly breathe. And they stop for a moment and they catch a breath of air, and then they do it again, and the person like barely is able to breathe. So this sense of spiritual waterboarding is when you ascend or accelerate, move forward in your development, but then are either limited, decelerated, or crashed back down, held back in some way. And this has been a very satanic paradigm for a long time, even predating the transhumanist hardware that we currently fight against, a sense of moving forward, but then being held back, or the gains that you make being erased and then having to do it again. I was talking with someone recently about the myth of Sisyphus. So it is that sense in spiritual development. And the myth of Sisyphus also relates directly to death. Thank you. I'm just hydrating. Thank you for a moment. So, the myth of Sisyphus is that he was being punished, and his punishment was to roll a giant boulder up a hill each day. Each day, he would have enough time to get most of the way there, but not all the way there. Like, I'm rolling it up a hill, up a hill, up a hill, up a hill, all the way up to here. And then it would roll all the way back down, and he would have to do it over and over again every day. So this is a anthropomorphic telling of the myth of the cycle of death over and over within one life, dying, refining your trajectory, and then coming back and trying it within that same corporeality. And then also within multiple corporealities, within multiple lives. So you are not starting off with like life one, I master it. Then life two, I master it. Then life three, I master it. You are living many lives at the same time, and you are mastering all of those life lessons at the same time. And then all of those lives are coming into focus at the same time to create the mosaic of self, the multifaceted version of self. Here's my beautiful diamond darling of my multifaceted version of self. As I'm very, very rich. This is my giant diamond. But each one of these facets represents an aspect of self, and the entirety adds up to who I am as a soul. So you have the same thing, that you have many different lives that you are exploring, different trajectories through the time field, different self-identities and self-states, and you have commonalities between those different ways of being, but then some of them are all the same. Like I told you, like I'm always going to be creative. If I'm Aurora here, or if I'm a rock shrimp at the bottom of the ocean, I will be creating like some kind of art or music no matter where I am. So that's an innate personality characteristic. And you guys all have your own innate personality characteristics. Like maybe you are a really great cook. Like I am not the best cook. The truth is, like I make food that is edible and I assemble ingredients, but I'm not like the fanciest cook in the world. But maybe you are. Or maybe that's your gift and your joy and your passion. And maybe you're like, yeah, I was at the bottom of the ocean. Like I'd be the best, whatever, rock shrimp creator. I'd make the most tastiest sea anemones. I'd make the tastiest sea kelp. Like whatever, wherever you are, you would make things taste the best. Or if you were a bee, you'd be like, oh yeah, I make the best bee pollen. You gotta come over my hive and taste it someday. All right. So this is part of the joy of being alive, that you're on exploration to be able to figure out what are your characteristics and what are your flavors. And I already mentioned, and I emphasize again and again, when you go through this process of refinement, the other end, you're not a flavorless glob of unflavored gelatin. That's what ascended mastery is. No, Ascended masters are flavorful gelatins, maybe even with some kind of, fruit cocktail floating in them. I mean, you get to keep some of your personality characteristics, and like being humorous and lighthearted is definitely a part of my personality characteristic. I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, yeah, I definitely had to have that characteristic in order to be on this gig. You need a sense of humor to be on this gig around here, guys. I'm telling you. Uh, I also have to warn you about the cul-de-sac of ascended masters, that not only do they um, talk about the necessity of death and then, living in like an positive afterlife, but a lot of them believe in cyclical destruction and the necessity of cyclical destruction. For some people, it might be in the style of the book of Revelation at the end of the Bible, but for some people, it's like the Kali Yuga of the Hindu tradition, or these different cycles that are known about in the Mayan tradition. And this is very, very challenging. Some people use that partial knowledge of the cyclical nature of time in order to escape responsibility and assuage themselves for really screwing up. I wanted to say really fucking up, doing bad math, and then being like, oh, well, the world is going to destroy itself anyway. It's part of the cycle of destruction. All right. To understand, God, my face says it all. So first of all, no, you can't just be a sweat hog and be just like, oh, well, I ascribe my own lack of motivation to learn to the various cycles of destruction, and you're just going to all get destroyed anyway. No. And also, when you're a bad student and you're like, well, I am doing bad math, you are contributing to cycles of destruction. And also, please know that when you have cycles of destruction, that like what is going on right now is not total destruction. Where's my lasagna? I have to squash to get it. Flying Rainbow Lasagna is an artistic separation of that which should be in energy and should be in existence, and that which should be in entropy and should be destroyed. And that artistic aesthetic choice is everything. Some things are sent to entropy, not everything. Some, but not all. That's a math term. Some, some, but not all of the stuff that is here is sent to entropy. So some people are simplistically believing in a guru that's like, it'll all be destroyed. Why try? Also, you're a giant screw up and you have no hope. And I'm like, no. And also, some of the stuff that's here is going to be destroyed, but not all of it. And therefore, you have a possibility of being in the subset of things that are not destroyed. Like, why not try for that as opposed to fall into the trap of spiritual passivity? So these false ascended masters who are not actually good gurus have taken prisoners in finding disciples who will also be spiritually passive. And when you are passive and you stop rowing effectively through like the oceans of time, that is also how you hit the membrane of death. Like you end up being like, you know what I mean? Like wreckage, like flotsam floating, not self-propelling and consciously maneuvering through time. And so that passivity and giving up in that way is a death sentence or bringing people closer to death. And that's terrible guidance. Like if you're like, hi, I'm a spiritual teacher, I'm an ascended teacher, stop swimming. And the world is going to get destroyed. And you stop swimming. And then guess what happens? The world gets destroyed and you get destroyed too because you made that timeline and you made that happen to yourself because you stopped swimming, as opposed to knowing that you have the capacity to generate and create potentials into the future that can sustain you. And that's everything that I teach about with Flying Rainbow Lasagna. When we do our dance through time, we're not just dancing through pre-existing patterns. We're not just dancing through, let's say, the oceans or the water of time that is already in existence. We literally generate new pathways, generate new water, more new streams to be able to keep us afloat. So if you internalize the message of many other previous spiritual teachers that's like, give up, or there's natural cycles of destruction, or just cosmic shrug, like, neutral vanilla, it's just going to be a blob of gelatinous nothingness, then that will be your fate. But if you're like, wait, there's a new possibility called Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and you can actually write a new narrative, erase stuff that is bad, take responsibility for your creation, not be a passive experiencer, and you don't have to die. That's a really radically different message. So I know it might sound like I'm like harping upon the negative. I have to make a distinction between myself and these old, musty, dusty, grimy, yucky flavors of like old stuff that is obsolete. And that I really encourage you to relinquish it, relinquish that stuff. Like some of it is about personality characteristics. Like maybe you're like, whatever, like a tobacco smoker. And some people really develop an identity of a tobacco smoker. They're like, they always have their cigarettes. They're always smoking a cigarette. They're always carrying matches. Like that's who they are. And it's a lot to let go of that, but really it's just a habit. It's not you. Some of these spiritual choices are also just a habit, not even the real you. Some of it is just the postures and worldviews that you're currently imitating from another person and exploring. And then hopefully, when you learn and grow on an inner level, you're ready to release those postures and be like, I don't really think that. I don't really feel that way. That's not the real me. So when you have a guru or someone who taught you something, in many ways, they are distilling their essence and then living through you. They put their mind and their worldview through you. Think about like Isaac Newton. I don't think that he had biological children. Forgive me if he did. I have to be better as an encyclopedia. I have to look that up. But I don't think that he had biological children. And yet he did pass on his worldview to all of us through his writings and how he looks at the world. Or like think of someone like Da Vinci. I don't think that he had children either. And yet his worldview, his artwork, and some of his visionary imaginings profoundly affected the world. His mind lives on in you. He didn't make babies with his, whatever, reproductive organs. He sent his thoughts out into humanity, or whatever, Vincent van Gogh, an artist like him. So when you are carrying these thought forms of a previous spiritual guide, you should also be very selective about which parts you believe in and continue to vivify, and which parts you now must pare away. Like sculpting is removal, not only addition. So the carving away, like some things you can add to it again, like some clay or whatever, but also you must remove the stuff that's not supposed to be there so that the true form can emerge. Hold on, I think that I hear my dog coming. If she comes, then we'll take a pause. Okay. So wait, so she's coming. I hear her. We're gonna take a pause, but then also there's lots of good questions over here. All right. All right, so we'll get to that question over here. First, hug Cheeky. Thank you very much for allowing me a moment's silliness. Good job. We got Cheeky in the house right here, getting some hugs. She has bribes prepared if we need that. Okay. First question is from Rebecca C. She says, what do you think about power animals and shamanism? I read a book about how our power animals can help us regain our power. So I think that power animals like astrology and some of these other forms of cards and oracle decks are ways, symbolic structures to be able to perceive and make sense of reality. But like paring away the aspects of the personality that are not eternal aspects of self, it's at a certain point necessary to pare away the symbols and just receive the pure insight and information. So what I do in my life is I get the pure information and I don't just go by symbols. Even though it's very beautiful, like sometimes I might hear the hoot of an owl or the cry of the red-tailed hawk. And I'm like, oh, I know that. And it means this. I know that. And it means this. Like these are important messages that come to us from the natural world. But I think that it's not as facile as carrying around your handy dandy manual and be like, oh, I hear the hoot of an owl. Let's look that up and see what that means. Because so much of this is about how you apply your ability to read and interpret signals and symbols, not just know what it is from a book. The best thing you can do beyond reading a book to connect to power animals is to actually become telepathic with animals and with nature. And it's a psychic gift. So I'm a mentor for people like about what are your psychic gifts. So I don't know what the word is for it, but like telepathic with humans is one thing. Empathic is another thing. Telepathic is another thing, like telepathic, empathic. And then telepathic with animals, and animal communication is its whole own thing. And it's separate from healing because sometimes animal communication is like inherent in the attempt to heal an animal, but you should all practice not healing an animal, but just animal communication and animal telepathy. It might not be your greatest proclivity, but it's like learning how to walk and talk. It's a basic life skill. It's a basic life skill. You should be able to talk to a tree. You should be able to talk to a rock. You should be able to talk to the planet. You should be able to talk to a microbe. And you should definitely be able to talk to like whatever, a bird, a squirrel, a dog, a cat. And they're all different. And also, you can't just expect to be friends with everyone. I know it's a difficult message to hear, but it's for real. So like when I go around town with my dog, even though she is a dog, I can't expect her to be friends with every dog. As a brief, funny anecdote, once we were in the Michael's craft store, they're very dog friendly, and I brought my dog in there. And they always, you can bring your dog in there to just help them get trained and socialized. So there was this other dog in there that's kind of like all over the place, not really acting that calm, cool, and collected, and had these like crazy goggly eyes. And I was telling my dog, I was like, go over and play with that dog. And my dog looked at me like I'm not playing with that dog. Like, mom, like get real. Like when you tell, like I'm not a mom, but when you're a mom and you take your kid to the playground and there's this kid that's like crazy with goggly eyes and wild glasses and not acting socially appropriate, and you tell your kid like, go play. You're like, mom, I'm not being friends with that kid, no matter what. You have to respect these boundaries and individualities. So even when you're in the woods, not every tree, you can't expect every tree to be your friend, can't expect every butterfly to be your friend, can't expect every human to be your friend. So you must go forward respectfully, but with that, with that level of grace, like I'm kind of giving you finishing school lessons about like how to be a polite lady, walking through the woods, but with that attitude and with that gracefulness, if you get what you give in life, especially in a pristine system. So in our world right now, like there's a lot of inhibitions to this proper level of telepathy, but as I clear out the world more, it will get better. So please continue to go forward and be like ladies and gentlemen with grace in the way that you connect with other organisms. But yeah, make overtures that are appropriate, that are loving, that make something want to talk to you. Show that you want to get a friend, you got to be a friend. You got to be a friend to have a friend. I'm sorry, there's some aphorism in there. But yes, like if you want to talk to grass, you have to be like, hi, like I'm a friend to you and would like to talk with you and connect with you and see what your insight is like. So yeah, we all should be doing that. And that is not something that's supposed to be a privilege, but something that is a privilege in this world that will become a lot more normal. And Rebecca C says, thank you. It is my dream to be an animal communicator. We'll keep working on it. And it's nice that I can kind of tell that about you. It's good confirmation that I'm accurate, because I can tell with some people, I'm like, okay, I know that animal communication is like one of your primary gifts and you should work on that. So and it can also be a little bit tough too, like if you don't have your own dog or cat or whomever, because sometimes you just go to someone else's house. Like I went to my friend's house one time and she had lots of cats and I was telepathic with them and the cats kept looking at me like, can you hear us? And I was like, yeah, like I can hear you. I'm cool. It takes time, is what I'm trying to say, to develop a rapport. And they're intelligent and skeptical animals, so it might be difficult. So I hope that you have your own animals. And Aurelia says that she's been communicating with animals locally and birds in particular. Birds are really good with telepathic and animal communication. Their feathers are antennas. They are very, very sensitive to your mind state, emotional state, anything you say with words or sing, and definitely anything that you say with your mind. So they're really good. And then also, yeah, she says dolphin communication. That was the first thing that I thought of. So like, something like dolphins are actually almost ready to be friends with anybody because they are so cool and they pity humans. They're like, you poor humans, you poor humans. Like, let me talk to you and be a cool friend to you because you didn't have anyone cool in your world, and your world is so whatever difficult and everything like that. So you're like the charity cases. I'm sorry to put it in that way for dolphins. So you can always count on dolphins as a friend and to connect to dolphin friends. At first, it might be necessary to go someplace, like be close to the ocean to connect with them and even make a friendship. But once you do that, then you can go inland and you can still talk to them. So like I live like 10 miles inland and I've definitely been able to talk to dolphins, but that was ones that I first connected with when I was more close to the beach and then was able to have a long distance friend. So that's how I would say that you should do that. And Mary Ellen says cats and horses are challenging, at least for me. Well, you know what? I would find horses are very selective. They're incredibly sensitive. They are very emotionally present. There's a lot of humans that are like scary, overwhelming, and not good to be around, especially to horses. The ones that do the horse therapy and all of that nice type of good stuff, like those are like the strongest, most accommodating of horses. A lot of horses are like, I cannot deal with these humans. And also, please know that horses have like a ton of species-wide trauma about how humans have hurt them, and they have a lot of skepticism in like talking to you because like you jump on my back and you like put your heels into my like sides, and you do all these things. Same thing with elephants. Like the way that humans have treated elephants make it very, very difficult for humans to communicate with elephants because they really do talk to each other about us. And they're like, yeah, those humans, like they will like poke you with a thing and be an asshole towards you. So just know, and same thing with raccoons. Raccoons, they carry lore and stories and talk to other raccoons and tell them, like, those are the humans, and this is what they do to people like us, raccoons. So stay away from them. So yes, please know, like, it's a complex world to navigate. Like, hard enough for me as a walk-in to even navigate human dynamics on this planet, then also have to navigate all these species dynamics. And I always try to tell them, I'm not like the other humans. Like, give me a chance, man. I'm not like the other humans. I'm cool. So you guys maybe can do a similar type of thing where you say that. Okay, so wait, let me rewind. Okay, and so wait, this is the other thing. So let me first, my prescription against meditation. Why not meditation? Because everyone is like, prayerfulness and meditation. This is how it will save the world and things will get better. And then I'm like, I don't think that meditation is always the right thing or is always done in the right way. So let me say this in the right way so that I'm not warning people against, like, there might be some food that is relatively healthy and good, but it just might not be good in large quantities or in every circumstance, or there might be a limitation. So let me say this in the right way. What is wrong with meditation is that sometimes people meditate, they open themselves up to something without correct spiritual immune system, and then bad stuff comes in pretending to be good. And I think that that's especially true of people who are part of some of these guru-disciple relationships, especially when the guru has passed on and they don't have their own physical body anymore. I think sometimes it's exploitive of the disciple that then becomes a container for the guru. And while they're in meditations, what they're really doing is containing that echo, that presence, or that signal. And it doesn't feel like healthy and consensual. It feels like unhealthy and inappropriate. So when you ascend, like, you don't need someone to meditate to contain you. You don't need anything from anyone. Like, you don't need no stinking badges. When you are ascended, like, you don't need food, you don't need water, you don't need people to do anything or give anything to you. Please know that. So I mean, when we go talk about the funerary traditions of ancient Egypt, they also, like Hindu cultures and some other places, would leave offerings for the dead. And that when you are ascended, you do not need anyone to leave out food or aromatic spices or offerings to you. And same thing when you are a divine presence. So there are many, cults and traditions where people create an altar and put food out to feed a non-physical presence. That's not really divinity. That's not really an ascended master. An ascended master would not eat like your fruit platter that you put out as an act of devotion, but there are people in the cul-de-sac that would. So now we have to, let me rewind. I'll get to more of your questions and comments, but let's do like a history lesson, because we got to talk about the afterlife and the conception of afterlife and where it comes from, and people's thoughts about good and evil and reward and punishment. And the Christian concept of having an afterlife and having a heaven versus a hell is very much an outgrowth of the Jewish religion. And the Jewish religion is not an outgrowth of, but is a response to and comes out of the cultural context of the Egyptian funerary tradition. And the Egyptians did not pray to a god in the same way that the monotheistic tradition does, like in intercessional prayer or a request for some assistance or something like that. What the ancient Egyptians did was cultivated themselves during life for the athletic event that is known as death. but they didn't have the concept of avoiding death. They looked at death as either a success or a failure. So if you succeeded in your death, it means that you built a belief system that was airtight, watertight, leak proof, and didn't get crashed on the rocks. And you were able to sail across the duat being the interim place of wandering after you initially die, and as a direct allegory for the Milky Way in the sky, and make it to the other side. And when you make it to the other side in the Egyptian tradition, you get on the sun bark of Ra. The bark is Barque. It is a raft. And the raft was one of those, like a flat raft, like with a curly prow that they would have on the Nile. And the solar disk was looked at as a raft that contains the greatest people who ever lived. So, like a god like the god Ra, or a god like the god Osiris, other immortals, and those who managed to traverse the Duat. The Duat is described as a place of confusion. It is very similar to the lower astral or the lint trap or the crappy world, the crappy zone. It is a place of fragmentation. The end results of echoes are there. There's a lot of psychopathology that ends up there. The psychopathology is not supposed to go onward and eventually become a part of the sunbark. It's supposed to stay in the lint trap. But if you want to become a part of the world of immortals, you have to make it past all of these crazy things of insanity. And so some of them might be self-proclaimed gods that are imposters that are like, I am the god of so-and-so. You made it to my afterlife. Let's stay together forever. You have to be like, no thanks, get out of my way. You're not the real god. Like, so a lot of the book of Coming Forth in Today are how to avoid illusions and not be fooled. This is similar to some of the myths and stories that were told by the Maya. I don't have that as part of my notes, but these are the stories about Xibalba, which is the center of the Milky Way, origin point, cosmic vagina, and underworld. And we can say a lot of things about how people look at people's vaginas, consider it to be like the origin point, but also a very questionable underworld place, like filled with illusions and questionable things. Bazinga. But in the stories about Xibalba, like you go there and you're in this weird underworld, and there are all these tricks that the denizens of that world try to play on you. Some of them are like the putis, they exist there and they're part of the hierarchy and bureaucracy. And some of them are the people that got tricked into being there. And they all try to trick you. So the bureaucrats who run the place try to trick you. And then the other people who got hooked into the multi-level marketing scheme, pyramid scheme of being there also try to trick you. And you have to be smart enough not to get fooled and not to get screwed by all of these bad consciousnesses. And I think that that's an important spiritual lesson for skepticism and spiritual immune system, that when you go into the level beyond the flesh, wherever that is, you can't just be relaxed and passive. You have to have some levels of cynicism or skepticism and be like, who are you really? What am I really talking to? What's your real agenda? Very, very different than just like dying and floating off somewhere. And this is part of my notes because that is pretty much how Western industrialized people are conditioned to face their death. That you should live in denial, right? Be fearful of death. Don't really talk about it. Don't really cultivate yourself or prepare yourself for it. And then when you die, just kind of be like, okay, like I'm dead now, I'm going limp. And my consciousness is just kind of floating around. It's not a very good plan. In fact, that is pretty much how you become ripe for exploitation. So previous, much more advanced civilizations knew a lot more about the journey of consciousness and what happens when consciousness is not directly connected to the body. And the stuff from the Hindu tradition and the Buddhist tradition, those guys are actually pretty good at observing consciousness on its journey. But the way that they interpret the information they've collected is not necessarily accurate, and then they have been exploitive of their disciples also. So I have to talk against them, but that's stuff from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But the Book of Coming Forth in Today was a series of recipes and prescriptions where it's basically like, when you die, do this, don't do this. In that time, people didn't have a sense of like an authority figure who would judge you on your merit, like whether you are moral enough or good enough, or even judge you, let's say, you have your resume of goodness, all the good deeds that you did. I know there's the story of Matt. The Hall of Matt is the Hall of Balance, the original story of having a scale, and you're going to weigh your heart against a feather. And if your heart is heavy, then you are thrown back for recycling. And this is different than saying, like, did you follow the 10 Commandments? Being a good person back then was not about following 10 Commandments or 613 commandments in a Torah, or following a certain set of rules, like always dress like this, bow to the east 3 times, say these magic words, and you will get into heaven. They had to learn how to get through the obstacles of the afterlife. So some of these ancient temples were for disciples and initiates to learn how to have the inner strength to face these obstacles and not get fooled. Like sometimes they had to swim under a barrier. Sometimes there was a moat that was filled with crocodiles. Like in life, the disciples had to swim through a crocodile moat or scale a sheer rock wall or something like that. And facing these challenges in life cultivated and prepared their consciousness for the time when they would not be in the physical body and they would face a similar challenge. Of course, you do have like the continuation of your expectation. So whatever, if you're a race car driver in life, then you will face your afterlife, and you might be having to whatever drive the ultimate race and beat your competitors on the racetrack. Like you do things that have a similar flavor. So part of it is you train at the temple and then find the same exact obstacles that are found in the astral realm, and also they designed those Olympic, training regimens at the temple because they knew what was going to come in the afterlife. So it's a feedback loop of those two things feeding into each other. Your expectation creates afterlife reality, but then afterlife feeds into the expectation of the next generations. Okay. In ancient Egypt, the idea was to preserve the corporeal form for as long as you could in order to extend the time that essentially your DNA is degrading and slowing down. I don't consider that to be success, but I have to describe this to you. And this, of course, is the time in Egypt that is closer to your own time. You know about mummies, and you know about the funeral tradition, and you know about the pharaohs. That's more recent. There was a time before the process of wrapping up the dead bodies, doing these rituals on them, and having the Book of Coming Forth in Today. That was a completely different time. And please know that the process of becoming mummified and the tradition of doing that became very corrupt, and it became a mania. If it originally had any level of uplift or validity in helping to people to think that they were going to have an extended afterlife, at a certain point it became only for the wealthy, or benefiting the wealthy and benefiting the wealthy priesthood. So it was no longer, so we're talking about like, are you moral enough to pass the weighing of the heart, but also, are you rich enough to afford a tomb? Are you rich enough to afford the correct wrappings and aromatic pastes to be smothered on your putrescent body? And also, are you connected enough to the priesthood to have the correct rituals done upon you so that you would be empowered in the afterlife? Because they had this special ritual where, like, after you were mummified, all those different things happened to you, and they had to do the opening of the mouth. Because if not, then you became what is known as a hungry ghost. You're in your afterlife in a kind of residual body that's like Casper the Ghost. It kind of looks like a physical body, but it's not exactly the same. And you have no mouth and no way to actually eat food. So I will tell you this, when you die, and when you die correctly and successfully, you do not have a corporeal form or a ghost-like form like Casper the Ghost. That is also, you transcend your physicality because your physicality is very, very much wrapped up in your temporal ego. So you do not have an energy form that is like the direct analog of what you looked like in life. You become an abstraction. This is pretty important stuff. And also, your consciousness becomes pure light and an abstraction. And yes, you are not motivated to, again, come back and say through a channeler like, hi, I'm an ascended master, or, whatever, eat at Joe's, or believe in this direction, or whatever, give all your money to me because I was right or I was wrong or anything like that. I actually wish that some of these false ascended masters would come back from the grave and like denounce their own mistakes and be like, no, I was wrong about this. And I never should have set you guys up to be married. It's obvious because you guys got divorced. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Because there are still some gurus in the Far East who do arranged marriages where they're like, yeah, like you and you should get married. And then it turns out like it's a terrible idea. And then they die. And I want them to come back from the grave and be like, P.S. I'm sorry. Like you guys were never meant to be together. Like I was lying. I was wrong all along. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at Cheeky over here. But that's my humor. No, it would take a lot for a lot of responsibility for a truly ascended person who is a teacher in life to admit to their mistakes and be like, wow, I had an influence on, I was in a position of power, I had an influence on people's lives, and I didn't really say the right thing or give them the right information, and then I screwed up people's lives. Like that would be a real responsible guru who would do something like that and then return from the grave or speak from the grave to correct their mistakes. But I have not heard of many stories of that. And I have heard of stories that are like, oh, the guru is now speaking through this or that disciple and whatever. And I think that that is false ascended mastery and not real stuff. So, I mean, I hope that I'm giving you a good overview here today of you are not meant to die, and don't place your tendril of attention or expectation on going to the membrane of death. Definitely not in this generation. But the concept of death and what is actually happening in death has profoundly affected all of your expectations, your consciousnesses, your journey. And it's time to like you get a clean house and purge all of those expectations so that that way you can have a genuine experience of what planetary ascension is. Like when you ascend, it is you are not going to die. So Christian religion also has this really conflated. So we're going to move into Christianity. Okay, so the ancient Egyptians, it became wealthy people could afford a tomb, wealthy people could pay the priesthood, wealthy people could afford to be mummified, and then wealthy people could afford to quote unquote live for forever. What they really did was extended the time after which the DNA moves. So when you die, even though you're physically dead and you're not cognitively present, in your body, which was formerly your container, your DNA is still alive. And it's still doing its dance for about 3 days. And it's slowly slowing down during those 3 days. And that's really the time when most people are on a journey of the afterlife. So although it might be 3 days in the submerged in linear time scale, to their consciousness, it can feel like as long as it needs to feel like. And during that time, in an ideal purified sense, people face their own mistakes, have a self-assessment, go into introspection and retrospection, and get a better preparation for whatever is their next linear experience in embodiment. That's supposed to be a time during which like you work out your shit and learn from it, especially mistakes and things like that. So like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the tradition in that part of the world is that after a person dies, during those 3 days is when the soul is the most able to be influenced. And that is when people will intone and read from these sacred scripts. This is called the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But that's the translation of it. The original thing of what it's called is the Bardo Todal. I know I'm not pronouncing it correctly, and continued apologies for my non-excellence with language. But that is a similar description of how to get through the afterlife or how to get through the obstacles in the afterlife, but from a different culture that also had vestigial information that came from, ancient concurrent Atlantis. That basically in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it says, when you die, you're going to see a light. Don't go to the light, bypass, and then go to this light or go to this light or go to this light. So the basics of it, it says like, first you'll be presented with an opportunity to reincarnate. That's not going to be your optimum best option. They're going to read you things on the menu. Don't choose the first thing on the menu. Don't choose the second thing on the menu. Keep going on the menu as much as you can until you get to the end. And then, ideally you bypass the menu and you don't reincarnate again. Like that's wrong because you don't want to have to die and then be like, hooray, I died successfully. Now I don't have to reincarnate again. You want to not die. And that is how you are successful. But when I say that, people who are in the Gnostic tradition and people who are generally over it, they're like, well, Aurora, that means that I'm just going to be imprisoned here for forever. And that I'm like, that you're not supposed to be imprisoned, but you are supposed to be here. And death is not liberation, but ascension is liberation. So difficult stuff here. And I know I'm telling this in a very circular way, but I'll get back to Tibet of today. But first we have to do the ancient people who became the Jews and Israelites. They came out of the Egyptian funerary tradition. It had already become very corrupt, where you're like paying off priests and hoping that you get a good mummification and hoping that you can properly be mummified. Because what it does, they desiccate the body and dry it out so that way ordinarily you'd have like that 3 day and then the body would fall apart and you wouldn't have that experience any longer. But if you can dry out and preserve the body longer, then you are kind of tying that person to the afterlife and they're not going to resolve their experience. And I do think about the mummies that are still in like the museums in New York that have come from Egypt. And like there's Tutankhamun and a couple of other ones. And they were very wealthy nobles, and now they're in a museum somewhere, and their consciousnesses are not resolved. Like their bodies have not putrefied, they have not fallen apart, and they're still somehow like on that journey. I view it as similar to when a patient is on life support, that they have an unresolved, they're still tied to the physicality realm. And they are not fully free as consciousness to be able to go in any direction that they want to. And it's not necessarily a positive anchoring, like when a person is on life support or in a coma, they're really trapped and miserable. So I think of these artificial modalities for supposedly creating eternal life or extending life, sometimes they backfire and that they create an extended imprisonment. So extended imprisonment in a ascended mastery cul-de-sac, a extended imprisonment in or via a mummification process, or false astral Jesus, extended imprisonment in a supposed Christian heavenly realm. That's really just a pocket world to delight you, but to keep you stuck. The Jews who weren't the Jews yet lived in Egypt as second-class citizens. They were not given access to these traditions. Like basically back then, if you did not have the wealth to build a tomb, you didn't get to have an afterlife. It's like if you can't build a boat, there's no way you're going to row across the Duat and make it to the sunbark of Ra. Like that's it. They were very much dissatisfied customers in that community as outsiders. And when they went into exile and started this new religion that became Judaism, initially Judaism did not really have formal teaching about afterlife. And most of the conception of what those people had about what happens to you after you die came from the culture that they just came out of. And they wanted to kind of be like those people because those were nobles. They didn't really know how to be like those people. And there's no way that you're going to do this thing where you build a tomb and make mummies while you're wandering in the desert. They had a totally different thing. Do you understand? Like these became exiled people with no place to live, and they didn't have a way to carry on those traditions. So to them, they thought that afterlife was just this gray wandering place like the Bardo. They called it Sheol, Sheol, just a mist, like a gray mist that you went into. And this is also a place of confusion. And so when you don't have clear direction from life about where you're going to go when you die, that is an accurate portrayal of what the death experience is like. Either in passivity, you might float into a light that, resolves into a life that is not your real alignment or your real choice, but is kind of foisted upon you. Or you might just float around in a gray nothingness, not knowing what in the world is going on without some sense of a clear direction. And there was no official teaching about afterlife to that cultural group of people. All right. And that cultural group of people did a bunch of stuff for like 3,000 years until the time of Jesus. And then Christianity as an outgrowth is still very much rooted in the ancient funerary tradition of Egypt, in a sense of if you are a good person, and then you'll be able to be carried through the restorative bridge of love of Christ and his sacrifice, and then go to a heavenly realm, which again, I've warned you, is not real freedom, but is instead a limiting pocket world that is not where you actually want to go. And another type of cul-de-sac or lint trap for people that have a particular personality profile or set of characteristics. That set of characteristics is not only the desire to extend your life. And it's like saying, like, I think I'm the best version of my term paper. Like, I'm the edited version. Please save me for forever. That's kind of a lot to say that for some of these people, but that also that they sorry if I got off track there because I was talking about term paper and self-aggrandizement. Like, the Christian religion has a lot of problems because first it has people have to declare themselves as sinners and then get saved by Jesus, and then saying that they are the version of the term paper that should be saved. So the version of the term paper that should be saved is the one that like got really screwed up, then got saved and better, and then now gets to be forever in heaven. But like, I think that is flawed and self-contradictory in many ways. I also think that this might be difficult to hear. The Christian dogma as it's presented is not only just the religion of those who hit rock bottom, but a religion that requires or encourages believers to hit rock bottom and to define themselves as sinners who are hopelessly never going to get out of their whatever degraded lower situation, and that they must be spiritually passive and be uplifted by a type of guru hero who will bring them upward. And that, I think, is the ultimate end result of like a lot of unhealthy minds and energy that was in one religion that then got incarnated and is now unhealthy in another religion, and then also became unhealthy in another religion. So there's a lot of unresolved, unhealthy stuff that's going on in afterlife, and none of it is accurate about real after existence. So this is all the things that I have talked about, both Xibalba, ancient Egypt, and Judeo-Christianity. These are all fantasy places. Like, where all of those, sorry that I'm speaking so badly today, all of the mind places that those cultures created and upheld with their minds, with their beliefs, are not the real afterlife. Although you can experience them, you can definitely experience places that are not real. You can experience illusory places, and you can even experience illusory places and be there for some, I want to say, amount of time, even though time is not there, but you can be there for what feels like a long time, even though it's not a real place. So that should not validate the place. Just because everyone else is jumping off a bridge doesn't mean that you should also. Did your mom ever say that to you? Just because the unoccupiable membrane of death is being occupied by people doesn't mean you should go there. And just because these ill-conceived or not recommended places of after existence exist doesn't mean that you should go there or that you want to go there. None of these places are successful death. None of these are successful death. So successful death is when you, of course, live your life consciously and you know who you are and you are divinely connected during the whole time that you are alive, and then go through the death process like consciously. But if you are in this moment alive and divinely connected, then you do not die. That's why a conscious death is not a death, but is instead an ascension. And that was a terrible thing because I just got you all confused. And now I have to kind of fix it. So in this generation, when you are conscious, you do not die. It is possible that in other generations, people who were conscious died. It was before Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And so it is possible that at that time, death might have been a better path and might have brought them forward on their soul's journey. But for you, you do not wish to die. So this is important because when you look at people who lived their lives in linear time, what is your past? Some of them were spiritual aspirants and some of them did a good job. You can't just say because they died and they did not ascend that they're necessarily a failure. But there are different things that are on the menu for you that weren't on the menu for them. So for you, you should not choose the same meal that they did because you can choose something better. But also, you should not judge them by the standards of what opportunities you have now because you have expanded opportunities now. Death and leaving offerings to the dead, feeding the dead both with physical objects, and you feed the dead sometimes with your heart, like your caring about them, your memories of them, your connection to them, or even your tears, like your wailings and prostrations. All of these things are considered to be a type of food for the dead. But you guys know at this point, you're very well informed that those emotional states are more like the harvesting of loosh. So I will characterize grief as really a type of psychosis because it's not something you're supposed to experience. Like you're not supposed to experience death, you're not supposed to experience loss. And when it happens, even though it's so pervasive in your world, when people experience death, they still go a little crazy because they're like, this is not supposed to happen. And I do not know how to deal with it. And so for a lot of people, expectation of what is afterlife is their narrative life preserver that helps them to comprehend and give context and meaning to something that is incomprehensible to them, or again, makes them feel like psychotically disconnected from life and what should be. And people do really, when I say psychotic, people really do disconnect from reality and they go into imaginary thinking or fantastic thinking where they make things up with their minds, hallucinate, see things. There's a lot of belief and bringing things into existence through the profound power of your belief. And so afterlife is not only sustained by the expectation of people and their training during life, but it is also sustained by the willingness and participation of those who are left behind who want to think about and envision their loved ones in a benevolent state. And you should envision your loved ones in a benevolent state. But again, as I have characterized many of these afterlife scenarios as being imprisonment scenarios, not real liberation, envision your loved ones or pets either at peace, restful, or in a state of total freedom. When you're a state of total freedom, like you're a sunbeam, you can go anywhere. You're a particle of light. You're a part of the quantum field. You are definitely not like stuck in one little limited zone or, like encapsulated in any way. So please know that. So yeah. And if you love like whatever, I had a cat and she died. Just love the cat. She's not here anymore, but I envision her as being free. She might not be shaped like a cat anymore, but she's out there doing something. So you have to you have to liberate those who have died with your viewpoint and expectation of their consciousness and of what actually is possible for them. So in order for you to really have resolution, you have to advance until you can really see abstractly what happens on the journey of all of these lives. So I know, and I've done this diagram with you guys before when I feel more like I can touch the computer, the overlapping of time fields, where you have like a certain amount where your timelines overlap, and then other areas where your timelines do not overlap. And so for me and my cat, here's where we overlapped, and then here are the timelines where we don't overlap. So she went over here onto timelines where she still exists, but I don't exist. And I went over here onto timelines where I exist, but she doesn't exist anymore. And so we are separated by a gulf of time, but we still went on to both have more experiences. And we will experience re-encountering one another in infinity. So parallel lines meet at infinity. These are the rules of perspective. Okay, everyone, we're in art class now. Like if you ever stand on train tracks or stand on a long straight road and you look, there's the horizon, and then the road goes out to the horizon, and the parallel lines of the road or the train tracks meet at infinity. This is single point perspective. And it's also a profound truth. It appears as if these lives are parallel, as if these are two concurrent but non-interactive realities, but they do meet and interact at infinity. So this is truthful for anyone that you know in life who has died. You will re-encounter them at infinity, but you will encounter the version of them that made that infinite voyage, and they might look and feel and sense very differently to you. So I have some human friends that died, and I will not be re-encountering the version of them that was flawed. I will be encountering the version of them that went through a continued refinement process and learned more and more and more about what they wanted to do so that they didn't have to die. And then I will encounter that version of them. And so I know this is like a brain breakingly complex, but when you actually experience it, it is profoundly beautiful. But none of that should take away from the realness of loss when someone or something that you love dies. It is very, very real and very, very profound. Our planet is not going to die. There were real perils for the past 5 years of the transhumanist technology almost destabilizing us out of control so that we almost went over the virtual cliff in our whole entire world, like no longer being able to support or sustain life in our whole entire world, not just one species. And that did not happen for us. So please know that this is not just a refinement, like you in your life moving away from versions of yourself that aren't like the realest, coolest version of you. This is also larger things for our planet. That is what planetary ascension is. We are not on the timelines where the planet died. That would be equivalent of like a nuclear war or some other type of sanitizing event that sanitizes all biological life, or something that would cause such profound harm to the mechanics of like the crust, the magnetosphere, the things that hold the planet together, like make the planet rubble, like the asteroid belt, like that had nuclear war has not happened, planetary fracturing has not happened, other things that involve profound disruption to the fabric of space-time. And some of those include distortions of DNA, like the things I usually hold up on my bad pieces of paper. Those things have not destabilized your world to the point where your whole planet is going to die. That almost happened, but I did a lot of things to protect the planet so that way we're still here. The DNA disruption was really one of the most perilous things in terms of killing the whole planet. Like, hey, if you want to kill a whole planet, you know how you do it? Like create a bunch of bad DNA crap and then just sprinkle it on top of everybody's cornflakes in the morning and all the squirrels in the park. I've talked about this before a lot. This is not just some silly, whatever experiment that's being done. Like this has been a very, very perilous experiment, and it's not fair to roll the dice with other people's planets. Like I live on this planet too, you live on this planet too. Like don't roll the dice with our whole entire world. So please know that we have transcended those negative timelines, and now we are on a much more stabilized timeline because I did a lot to get rid of the people and people that contain the worldview of like, let's experiment with the world or roll the dice and imperil the world. So please know that things will be a lot better going forward. But it's been a very, very difficult time for the past 5 years. And you made it onto the good timelines. So you're not on timelines where the biological life was completely eradicated or where Earth is no longer a viable container for life or for consciousness. We are still here. And now also like I'll just give you like a positive direction to go for the future, but you will come into a expectation and a genuine connection to potential, that means that you don't have to die and organisms don't have to die anymore. There will also have to be like a change in expectation of life and a reverence for life. But I've already told you, like, you don't have to have a reverence for pathogenic microbes. Like, some things are pathogenic microbes and you want to get rid of them. Don't be like, oh, like this beautiful staphylococcus microbe, we have to preserve its life. Like, no, kill it with fire. It's bad. You don't want it in you. But some things we do want to preserve and not have them die. All right. So what you will have eventually is a world that is populated by those of us who are in our ascension personality, with our bodies formed in alignment with the principles that sustain and generate time and that make ascension possible. And that literally those who embraced death as a necessity or a desire, something that they desired to experience, like they will not be here any longer. Like they will definitely get what they desire. Everything is, sorry, I just answered someone's telepathic question. You're like, oh, so we always get what we desire. Yes. The truth is, both in life and after death, you get what you desire. Some people desire a world that is full of death. And this is also a difficult thing for me to even comprehend, but some of these gurus teach about the cyclical destruction as, when I call it, a paroxysm. It's kind of like a catharsis. I needed catharsis because the world has gotten so screwed up that they're like, burn it all, kill it with fire, put it in the bin. We don't like anything around here. And I've already told you that I don't embrace that, and that there's a lot of goodness to be preserved here. And it's literally why I'm here as Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So those who are embracing the catharsis and the expected liberation or like emotional fulfillment or satisfaction they think that they're going to get from either their own self-destruction or the perceived destruction of the planet or of reality, like they would have to go on to a different timeline. Be like, go on to a non-viable timeline where everything gets destroyed and you can have your wish fulfilled and you can experience that. But I am not having that experience here on this timeline. So it's also, again, because we're multifaceted and nonlinear, it means that ideally people are able to experience and explore their need for self-destruction or misery without involving you. You're like, I'm on the non-misery timeline over here and do not want to have to experience, what you as a misery person need in order to find your fulfillment. Okay, wait, let me get to some questions over here. Don't worry, I will get back to everything and tie everything up with a bow. Mary Ellen wants to know, are we going to remember this? I hope so. Of course you are going to remember this. So you will remember this, and your lives are valuable real estate, not in the sense of like a mummified form that is in some sandy desert somewhere, so that 5,000 years later, some consciousness can still be kind of like tethered to that dried up like beef jerky of a form and be like, oh, I'm still kind of alive down there. Like I still have some cellular matter or DNA. So to get at the DNA structure and the DNA resonance of that original person, although it's beef jerky, it's still kind of there, or their bones are still kind of there. Or think about anything that has been preserved long-term in that sense. That would be like a bog man. Some of these guys got buried in the bogs and they survived a long amount of time, or something encased in some kind of volcanic ash in Pompeii or something like that. Like these types of deaths, that they are extending that time of that transitional time, but that is not necessarily the definition of liberation. But your real estate that you hold, that is part of the time stream, is alive. And I am not a dried up beef jerky body. I'm an alive body and I'm fully hydrated and I'm here. And I'm also a container and a foundational holder for consciousness and time and DNA that is at the nexus point, this nexus point in time. Like you'll be the same way. If you're going to hold on to yourself, you're going to remember yourself, you're going to remember this moment. Your body is in this moment. It is 3:55 p.m. on December 17th of 2025. Like you're here in time. Your body is alive. You have real estate and you will be doing stuff as consciousness that has transformed and metamorphosed with this body that is here now. And you don't have to die to do it. So people thought that they had to die in order to be liberated. People thought that they had to die just in order to be able to get a clue and see clearly because the bodies were so disrupted. What if there's something you can do to make your body less disrupted? What if there's something you can do to make it so that your body becomes a clear container and you don't have to die to connect to God, but you can talk to God while you are still alive? That sounds good. That is good. It is flying over lasagna, and that's what I'm encouraging you to do. And when you do that, then you are able to not only avoid catastrophe because you can see clearly and be guided by God through each moment, but also I'm sorry, and this person keeps on talking to me. Hold on, hold on, hold on, please. Hold on. Oh my God, I can't even touch. I have to touch a button. I have to touch a button. I have to touch a button. I am touching so many buttons right now, guys. I have to touch a button 22 times right now. I am touching a button 22 times to be able to do this. Hold on, because I can't even press pause before I touch this button. Do you have, oh my God, do you see how many times I just touched the button 25 times? Okay, I just touched the button 25 times. Now I'm pressing pause. Thank you, everyone. Mary Ellen says, this is what Seth had said in the Seth material. So basically what we believe in, we experience. Yes and no, because that Seth material is some CIA bullshit, and you guys really got to watch out for all this channel material that actually came from people that were influenced by CIA and total nonsense. So the really thing that you need to do is get your own higher faculties going and talk to divinity yourself. These other books that are like Seth material, A Course in Miracles, I will name some books that I absolutely hate. I hate The Shack. I hate The Shack with passion. It's horrible, crappy grooming. I haven't read all these things, which is why I cannot do a point by point, whatever deconstruction of everything that is wrong with them. But so much of it has to do with, boils down to this. Why do bad things happen to good people? Oh, because you have something to learn from it. And even though your kid got killed by a psychopathic maniac and whatever, dismembered and left in a field, it's God teaching you something as a lesson. Like that's basically The Shack and a bunch of other crappy, reductionist, harmful, and corrosive. I won't even call them spiritual teachings, but they are groomings. So it is truthful that what you are culturally conditioned to believe in and to expect does happen to you on the expectation of your death, and also that just having the expectation of death brings about your death. And also, you can't just cheat code and make stuff up and expect it to come into experience and into being because you believe in it. Like, what if you believe in, I believe in the chocolate ice cream religion. And if I eat enough chocolate ice cream, I'm going to go into chocolate ice cream paradise at the end of my life. And it doesn't matter if I kill a bunch of people and murder them and drink their blood. I am going to chocolate ice cream paradise at the end of my life. And what do you think about that? Like, what do you think will happen if a person believes in that ridiculous proposal? They actually will not go to chocolate ice cream paradise. They actually will face the red clipboard. And one of the first things the red clipboard is going to say is, there is no such thing as chocolate ice cream paradise, and you should stop hurting people. And you're effing a-hole for hurting people and thinking that you could still go to paradise in some way. Hold on, I want to give my dog a little bit of food. Hold on one sec. Because if you simply received what you thought or expected, then that would be an amazing way to hack the system and avoid responsibility. And you do recognize that pathogens and pathogenic characteristics have at their foundation a desire to evade responsibility, a desire to be a bad student that never faces the clipboard and is never told that they've done something bad, essentially to avoid any boundary settings from the cosmic infrastructure. Death is the ultimate boundary setting. It is literally a boundary. Don't go beyond this boundary. And it is also a behavioral boundary. If you act in this way, you will go to this place that tells you that you acted in the wrong way. Someone just had a great thought, and I'm going to praise you for it. Whoever it is, you're smart. It's like, so great. Basically, all of human history and everybody who's ever died is like being told from the cosmos that they did the wrong thing and all of these religions and gurus that are telling you like how to die and what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to believe and how to have a good afterlife are like telling you to do your math homework wrong. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I will also say this, I have been challenged a lot by Christian true believers or the true believing belief system when I say that you don't have to die in order to go to heaven or have a heavenly experience, because it is such a profound part of the indoctrination that the religion says that you can only go to heaven through Jesus Christ. And the story from the Bible, which is also grooming, says that, Jesus died and then he dove down into hell, the harrowing of hell, and he scooped up everyone who's cool, and then he blasted all the way up to heaven and brought everyone who's cool with him. So all of those Jewish guys like Moses and everyone who was like wandering around in Sheol and didn't know Sheol about Sheol and which direction to go in, Jesus, he like suffering, dead, into hell. Hey, you guys are all a bunch of innocents. Come with me up to heaven. Like, this is some fantasy rock star stuff that I know you want to believe in, but I think is very corrosive and not helpful. Also, I mean, like, and not only who writes this shit, but also, like, how can anyone know what is even happening in the afterlife? Like, I can see stuff that's going on in the afterlife and the membranes of death and other things like that. But I think that humans have been largely flying blind and don't know anything about this stuff and are really making stuff up. And that when they created that myth about the harrowing of hell, I don't think that they actually know about that at all. But I think that they're actually trying to do some kind of cheat code stuff where they're like, oh, yeah, no, he died on purpose. And then he went into hell on purpose to get the good people out of there. And you're some of those good people, and he's going to get you out of there. And this, like, there's a lot. That's all like gyrations of contortions and gyrations of very unhealthy minds. And these are not good belief systems. Okay, when you are building your raft to get across the duat, you want to have all of your belief system tied together perfectly. Perfect dovetail joints, no crappy architecture. That means a series of proposals that are rational, intellectual, that make sense, and that are not in conflict with cosmic law. Like, that is what you should actually believe. Things that are truthful. You should actually believe in things that are truthful. I'm going to open the door for Cheeky now, but she might bark at kids outside. Let's see if we can have this peaceful deal. Okay, go play, but don't bark at kids, okay? Again, apologies for being a dog mom. So yes, no, you should have um um rational and intellectual and spiritually correct beliefs. She is barking at kids out there. Can't cheat your way across the duat. Should have real information and have your boat be built according to correct divine harmonic architecture, and then you should make it across. There's not a way to fake it. This is the best information that I can give to you. So you actually have to do your math, and you actually have to be well informed. And this goes beyond the sense of being a good-hearted person and a moral person. You should be that. But like, let's say you want to drive from New York to California. You have to be a good-hearted person and a moral person. And then what else do you need? You need a car. You need gas. You need to make sure that your tires are inflated. Simple, practical stuff. Like with your energy, you need to be shaped in a particular way, and you need to be capable and have certain skills to be able to make this journey effectively. And so, of course, this is much more relevant to people who are going to make the death journey. Since you guys are in my class, you guys are going for full-on ascension and for a transition without a mortality event. But many people still believe in the mortality event. Like I said, it's challenging to Christians when I say, like, oh, you don't have to die, because a lot of the religion is about the sacrifice, the death, the blood of the lamb, that he chose to die. And how can you be so ungrateful that someone gives you a gift of their death and that you don't want to also die because they died? And don't you like this death gift that he gave to you? And you'd be like, sorry, I don't like the death gift, but I don't want to die. Is there a way for me to have a better life without death? I'm being silly, but it challenges the foundations of that religion and the definition of why Jesus Christ is admired as a religious figure. And I would say that the death is looked at as primary focus in that religion as liberation and also as spiritual power. And I am here to tell you that life is much more about liberation and spiritual power than is death. So how do you get liberated? Of course, like you have to death is easy. There was once an artist named Jenny Holger, I think that's her name. But anyway, she did these like lights that just spelled out things. And one of the things that she wrote was death should be as easy as falling off a log. I said, death is easy. You know what? Like, do the wrong stuff. Don't brush your teeth for a long enough amount of time and you will die. Like, it's easy to die. It is difficult to stay alive. In order to stay alive, you actually have to learn the musical score and play the music correctly. So, a lot of these religions and philosophies that are in your world right now, they are very mollifying to people who are not good musicians and who did not pass the audition. They're not getting to Carnegie Hall, but they're like, oh, like I just have to be a good person and kind of believe in this and then die. And then I'll be saved as an eternal version of self and an eternal term paper. That does not work. I'm very sorry, but so these standards, I'm a hard ass and I have very, very strict standards and I'm a perfectionist. The universe is like the ultimate hard ass with the ultimate, extreme standards. Like you're talking about becoming an eternal presence. You have to be really refined and worthwhile in order to be an eternal presence. So you can't just be like a lackadaisical or mediocre person who kind of believes in a particular savior or martyr and then dies. That is not um, a worthy or fine-tuned or calibrated enough consciousness to keep going. So thinking about it in that sense, like this boat is not going to get very far from the shore because it's not very well built. It's just not going to go very far. And then it's going to go, and then it's going to crash down into the waves, as opposed to a personality that is very, very well constructed, very, very strong, is not in self-conflict, and it has enough of the inner integrity structure to make it across the ocean of consciousness. And the structure that we're talking about is your belief system. And there's so much that's in self-conflict from Christianity and Judaism of ascribing motives to God, the God of the Bible. So I've already taught to you that the Bible is a satanic literature, and you also know that it is full of many of these inconsistencies or illogics or self-conflicts. And for people who are looking for information to guide them on their spiritual journey or guide them through the afterlife, like this is not effective information because it's full of illogic. So you will build your boat, but you will not have good dovetail joints. And then as soon as you go into the cosmic ocean, you will be bombarded with these powerful currents of energy, and it will destroy the consciousness. So the membrane of death is a flowing membrane of energy. And then there are cosmic currents. Like what happens when you go through the wormhole? Are you facing cosmic currents of energy? The answer is yes. You face cosmic currents of energy when you get to the membrane of death and also when you get to the wormhole. And you have to be able to sustain your formfulness in the presence of that energy. Otherwise, you are dismantled and you must try again. That's the best way that I can give this teaching. All of the rest of it is like flavorful bullshit, like from different cultures and different ways of looking at it. So being a good person is not defined as a sense of random human morals or capricious recipes of what it is to be good or what it is to be bad, because goodness and badness changes and shifts from culture to culture and time to time. And also implications change. Like what might have been healthy and positive at one point became not socially positive and corrosive at another time. And, guys, I talk about this show all the time. I like that show called The Good Place because it explores a lot of these things, but that is very accurate in, so if at one point you had whatever, given someone a gift, but then hundreds of years later, you're like, I'm going to give the same gift. But now that gift is produced through slave labor, or it has a pollution that harms the environment, or something else that there are implications from the things that we do now in a corrupt society. But even though you have a positive motivation, the carrying out of your motivation behaviorally means that you are unintentionally participating in a corrosive or satanic activity. Think about that and about how much like of our lives are tangentially, indirectly, foundationally tied to satanic activities. So you want to be a good person and go in the right direction. You don't want to participate, but just using dollar bills is satanic. So how does that reflect upon your morality, your decency, and your worthiness of being in a heavenly state? And the answer is like that. So using human philosophy and ethics to determine that is totally inadequate. And what you have to do is have like an audition for your consciousness to see if you're ready to join the band. And joining the band is about not only being good, but it's also about like, can you play? Like, can you imagine and connect your minds with other minds to positive things? To to instead of say positive things, to positive structures that you have generated in terms of reality. And that is what ascended masters do. So ascended masters use our minds in concert to generate and sustain reality, and are not vanilla milkshakes who sit around doing nothing while the world goes down the toilet. All right, you're supposed to do something. Ascended masters do something. So when you ascend, it's also not the end of your journey. Like you go through this whole entire refinery process, it's epic. And then you finally ascend. You go through here, but that is not the end of your journey. That just means that now you are in and you are liberated and you are free, but you continue to evolve. So you're not knowing everything and you have many more lessons to learn, but now you are in the next level or tier or whatever quantum to be able to experience something in that new realm. So you have transitioned and mastered all the things from the previous level, and now you're ready to go into a new level. I talk about this. Some of your skills are transferable job skills. What you have learned in this level are eternal, relevant, and will be applied in the next realm that we go into. But some of the things that you've learned here are like not transferable, and then it's just nonsense. And you'd be like, oh, yeah, I mastered that, but that was not worthy of my time and my efforts. So when you go into the next realm, it's not completely disconnected from your experience here. A lot of those experiences are generated by who you are here and now and stained by who you are here and now. So the work that you do from your present perspective, even though you're largely blind and you can't really anticipate or expect how that's going to affect your consciousness in what is going to become your future, it has a huge impact on your future. And that's everything from the loving kindnesses or goodness that you give out behaviorally to others to sending out your belief system, like Sir Isaac Newton teaching people of the future about physics or something like that. You have an impact on the world, and then you experience the impact of the world. But when you become an ascended master, you're experiencing it from a radically different perspective. So you are not, you are, when you are an ascended master, you watch the director's cut of reality. When you are here right now, you are like, not watching the HD version. You're watching like the expurgated, commercial filled, not very well, focused version. You're not seeing everything in reality. But when you become an ascended master, it's like the director's cut because you truly see everything. You see behind the scenes, you know and comprehend everything. And then also you're a lot more powerful. So you can ask this question, like, if there's so many ascended masters and they're so great and they're so powerful, and why is our world so screwed up? This is a very real question. So there are very many real ascended masters. And just like there are probably an equal number of stars in the sky, like there's a genuine connection between each ascended master and each star in the sky. But there have been a lot of things that have been blocking out your ability to actually talk to those real ascended masters. And some of it is like satellite stuff. or chemicals in your world. But even if you got rid of all the satellite and all the chemicals, then what you still have is this greasy layer of false ascended masters. And these are guys that are, again, like sometimes have a tradition that might be hundreds or thousands of years long, but it does not bring them to freedom. And they're just like an MLM, a multi-level marketing place where it's like, we need some new recruits. Let's talk to these guys and get them to kind of come inside and believe in this. And then your energy helps to sustain the empire, but it doesn't ever go anywhere. And that's why you don't really want to get hooked in and participate in it. All of those guys are obsolete and irrelevant. Don't join their company. Their company is irrelevant. Be a company of one. The best advice I can give to you is don't die. And in your ascension process, be a company of one. You're not required to have, like a lineage or something that you learn from or that um, allows you to enter into higher levels. That's the gatekeeping. The greasy layer of false ascended masters are self-appointed gatekeepers that are kind of like, oh, you want to go into the higher realms? Well, we're here to determine whether you are worthy. Anytime you encounter that energy, you must confront it. And you must be like, who are you to determine whether I should go forward on my spiritual journey? This is what it means to cross the bardo or to cross the duat. You encounter, it's like being in an insane asylum and you encounter the insane people in the insane asylum. And some of them will be like, hi, I'm your doctor. I'm here to heal you. And you'd be like, you're not a doctor. Like, you're a crazy person in the insane asylum like me. Like, you are not a doctor. And some of them will come along. I've already warned you that they will say, like, hi, I'm a savior. I'm going to lift and carry. You'd be like, no, no, thanks. I don't need any lifting and carrying. No, thanks. I think I'll just go on my own. Like, all of these things you must reject because you know that that's not right for you. But you guys are not going to make that journey non-corporeally. You're making that journey corporeally. So please think about the levels of skepticism and cynicism that you must use to confront that same energy in physicality, the energy of your own passivity or disempowerment or something that is going to religiously carry you or facilitate your journey or help you in some way. And for you to be like, no, thank you. I think I will go on my own. I don't need that from you. And I will do this in the way that feels correct from my own internal guidance system. That is how you make it through this insane asylum where I want you to know you are not dead. And as we're going through this ascension process, I mean, you're very, very clearly alive. And everything that I teach about is about with not just generalized sanctity of life, because again, you don't have to keep microbes alive or evil pathogens alive, but the sanctity of your own life. That when people are talking about the sanctity of death and like, these cathartic paroxysms of death, I'm like, hooray, like we're all dead, we're all liberated now. Like that is not healthy. What is healthy is embracing life, embracing the miracle of life. And I don't even use that word like in a cliche or unstudied way. I really mean it. Being here is an amazing opportunity, and we're supposed to keep on being here and keep on being alive in this opportunity. All of the other stories are profoundly unhealthy. They're foundationally unhealthy. And that's almost all these religions and a lot of these philosophies. And so like Buddhism as a philosophy, it talks about the transitory nature of life. Like everything comes and goes, and there's life and there's death, and everything has an end. And that I think is a philosophical band-aid to make people feel better for when you lose your ice cream and are traumatized. Because you're like, I have an ice cream cone, and then like the ice cream falls off, and they're like, well, like I don't have ice cream anymore. I'm very sad. And then you look to Buddhism to be like, oh, like everything is transitory. I had ice cream, now I have no ice cream. I feel much better about this now. Like, no, actually, like, no, just it's not good. It's not fair. The philosophy doesn't make it better. And what you should do is get the ice cream back on there. Like, don't let your ice cream fall. Don't die. Don't die. So I know that this is like, I feel like I'm not doing a good job today. Perhaps a difficult message to hear. And also I'm very nonlinear in how I portray this to you. But I would like for you to know about the mechanics of death and how other cultures view death. I would like for you to know about the errors in how they view death from those other time places. But also, I would like for you to know that right now, you're in a completely different context, and none of those recipes are applicable to your present situation. And what is applicable to your present situation is the very real truth that you do not have to die, and that 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 is what you can invest your belief in. You can build a dovetail, beautiful container for consciousness that is like, you do not have to die. But someone will say, like, then that means that you're not like actually getting into your boat and going across your ocean. Because up until this point, there has been a different type of bifurcation of what it is to be conscious, what it is to be awake, versus what it is to be dreaming, what it is to be alive versus what it is to be dead. And people look at death, or in the previous world, people look at death as a time of liberation because that's when you can do anything. Like, the world is open. Heaven is a paradise because you can do anything you want to. And of course, in that show, The Good Place, heaven is where you can do anything you want to. You should be able to do anything you want to while you're alive. Just that, I hope, gave you a complete cognitive and neurological reset. Like, how much you want to do things and do them while you are alive. So, the promise of the afterlife was held for a lot of people. Like, if you have an inadequate life, don't worry, you will be adequately fulfilled in the afterlife. Or if you have some deficit, then in the afterlife or in heaven, you will be able to experience what life is like. Like, if you're born with no legs, then when you die, then you'll get to feel what it's like to have legs and run around and do stuff. But really, that philosophy has been used to acquiesce to inadequate situations and for people to put off their fulfillment when they could have had it now. So please never do that. Please never say, like, oh, yeah, I'll do plenty of that in heaven. Like, I don't need to do that in life. I'll do that in my afterlife. This is when you are supposed to do all of those wonderful, good things, including having a genuine sense of community and telepathic connection, commune with others. The isolation of this world can make it feel like it is a hellish realm. But once you conquer that isolation and you're able to be telepathic and you're able to have real friendships and real connections through the heart, then the world becomes a beautiful paradise. Like, people are thinking like, oh, like you have to go to heaven to have the paradise experience of walking around in safety and being able to speak to loving community members. And I am trying to say to you, you should make this world that world where you can walk around in safety and telepathically talk to other community members. And in order to do that, then it means that people have to let go of the non-foundational belief system aspect, the peripheral belief system. Oh my goodness, couldn't even say it. The peripheral belief system aspect that says that Satan runs the world. That's what you got. Release that concept, and then you will be able to actually envision the world being a not fucked up place, and you will not be part of the escapist fantasy of having to die to actually go to heaven. Everyone in this class has already firmly internalized this. I don't have to keep on emphasizing it. You guys are all great. I hope that anyone who's new will come upon this and really get a sense of what this is. So, okay. Yes, and Joyce is saying it very succinctly, says, Christianity is death cult, eat body and drink blood. You understand. And I think that it is such a, whatever, like a disgusting portrayal of the person who is really here. I think that it is not meant to say, let's cannibalistically eat someone who is dead, but in the beautiful sense to say, like, the cognitive presence of someone who is very loving, sustains and generates this whole world and makes these things like the bread of our sustenance and, the water that sustains us. And that is why we should think of, the great sustainer when we eat our food and drink. And the whole focus on death and blood and being washed in the blood of the Lamb, like, these are manias. You live in a very sick world. Okay, so wait, let me just rewind a little bit. Rebecca agrees. She says, completely agree about the shack. It grooms you to accept suffering. Thank you. Thank you. The shack is like Band-Aid, Buddhism. And then there's also some stuff in Hinduism where it's about just like, yeah, like you're in a reincarnational carousel and you just have to wait until it's your time at the top. And that is also what some of these guru and disciple relationships cultivate and require. And I think that none of that is healthy stuff. So I'm warning you against just a bunch of unhealthy stuff. Um, okay, and then let me get down here. Let me read this. Okay. So some of this is a little bit I don't know if it was like um to be able to share with the class. So I read Michelangelo's comment here. So in case you don't know him, he is a person who had a spinal cord injury and deals with like some lasting chronic difficulties, like the difficulty of having a catheter, and he's got some feeling state from the chest down, but has like some consistent some chronic infections and things like that that are from all of this. And so he's asking about what his liberation will look like. Essentially, he says, I stay centered throughout the whole ordeal, and I'm asking, what can I do with the FRL to delete this program together, or do I focus on healing the spinal cord? So I would say that is the FRL application in your life. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a bridge or a way, a narrative. I want to say convenience, but that's not really the word, a narrative structure to be able to write something new that couldn't have happened before. And so in the past, there's like you don't have very many good options. Just fall over and die and then go to Christian heaven, right? And I'm like, no, Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So that means that Michelangelo has the capability to dance with his DNA and connect with time and write a new reality, to write a new potential for the future where it can be, it depends on your rationality or your cognitive ability. It can be like your body is able to heal and regenerate, or creating new wormholes to send signals through your body makes it possible to bypass the injured areas of your spinal cord. Or sometimes it can be like a new thing is developed or invented. And that one, it's like, a little bit challenging, but like we don't always want to look for like a technology, an externalized thing, but sometimes it's a thing. Sometimes a thing like a physical matter object or procedure or molecule or food or supplement that you eat can be the thing that helps your body. So like, of course, you're always healing yourself, you're always generating yourself, but sometimes you do need a rational, a story to be like, oh, I didn't have what I needed, but then I got this thing, and then I was able to become empowered or find a way to heal my body or find a way to do this or that. So, if I share about myself, like I initially did a lot of things to be able to fix my brain when I first came here, like over 20 years ago, but it wasn't enough. I still had a lot of epilepsy and things like that. I take CBD every day. For me, CBD is the thing, right? It's a thing that helps me. CBD is a thought construct. It's a thing. I didn't used to know about it. Then I learned about it. Then I found it was a thing. And then I grow it and I take the thing and it helps me out a lot. So some of what we do in helping to fix our life trajectory is raw belief and, that power, unformed belief. And sometimes that unformed belief creates either, like I said, a procedure, a behavior, or a supplement or a particle that you ingest that helps you in some way. The flying rainbow lasagna activity, it's a generator of something new. Just think of it as generating something new. So something new can be a phone call. Like someone calls you up and says, hey, I just heard of this new thing. Eat some of this. Or whatever, seeing something new, a new site, a new frequency, a new concept, or a new way of doing things. And then by doing that thing, it makes it possible for you to achieve more in your health or be more in who and what you are. Please also know that the past 5 years have been not optimal circumstances for lasagna. It's been the most difficult time that you could ever try to start to do flying with lasagna. It's been an anti-lasagna time. I've been doing so much work to clear out the bad frequency stuff and the harmful agenda stuff and these harmful transhumanists and their bad hardware and software. So please know that very soon, at some point, this journey will get a lot easier in terms of the effort it takes to do flying rainbow lasagna. Because flying rainbow lasagna is a miraculous thing. Like what you can do is create the circumstances for it, but not say like, I'm going to do it at this moment, but you create the potentials for it and then hope that it will come forward. There's been so much anti-lasagna atmosphere in the past couple of years that like any amount of lasagna requires iron willpower, trying really hard, bicycling up a hill, effort, 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 when it's not supposed to be that way. And so comprehend the amount of lasagna you've had has been less. It's been lasagna under duress. I have not been able to lasagna as much as I would like to in order to help you, and things are going to change and get better. So one of the things that I can do as things get better, like my lasagna amplifies and facilitates your lasagna. Like one of the things that I think about is dancing into being. Other people can do lasagna. Like I'm dancing, and then the narrative structure is that you are able to dance. So the more that I am facilitated in doing this, the easier it gets for all of you. The things that make my job easier are more light, more sunlight, less satellites. I was fucking satellites. Fewer fucking satellites in the sky, and less, of course, ground-based frequencies also. And also for me to lasagna effectively, really good nutrition. Like I really have to eat enough protein, enough high quality light. You need to eat light in order to have the oomph to powerhouse and do the lasagna. So please know that these things are getting better. In fact, the other day I felt the feeling state maybe of like 2018 or so, a pre-war feeling state. And I feel like that was very, very positive to be able to feel like that again. So I will, of course, be sending out a lot of potentials for world improvement. And we're working on a collective manifestation. So if I send out energy to improve the world, and someone else out there also has like amazing healing capabilities, healing techniques, and they take that energy and they use it to create a healing center. And you are also sending out healing energy to the world for creating a narrative structure where your body is healed. All three of us work together in order to optimize an environment where that actually happens. So in order for you to be healed, you might need to have more sunlight coming into our world, possibly like less corrosive, fewer corrosive frequencies. So that's like 5G telecommunication satellites and other types of stuff. There's environmental factors that are not currently within your control. And also you might possibly need to eat, drink, or be exposed to something that you don't presently have. But know that those things are either in existence or have the potential to come into existence. And then once you receive them, you're able to move forward in this. So it's perhaps difficult to hear this. Like, I'm sure that you want to move forward and simply do what you would like to do and experience what you'd like to experience, and be like let's all stop anything that is holding you back or an impediment. So let's press fast forward on all of this. I really, really hear that. And so please know we got to press fast forward on the larger environmental difficulties, getting the satellites out of the sky and anything that's an anti-lasagna inhibitory ray or particle in our world. And once you do that, then your journey becomes that much easier. So now let's page break from death stuff, and let's just talk about the concept of what you believe and your belief system manifesting reality. Cheat code works because what you believe does become your reality. But there are limits to what you can believe. You're like, okay, we're like, I'm believing that I'm like, whatever, a giant purple watermelon right now. Why am I not turning into a giant purple watermelon? As I'm like, there's a limit to what you believe. And then also, like, at some point, you will have enough energy to believe yourself into becoming a giant purple melon, but you don't have that energy right now. And when you get that energy, you're going to want to spend it differently. So just please know that. So your desire for healing yourself and healing the world is totally accurate, and you should, do that. You should want to do that. You have to receive the resources to actually make it happen. Let's start to wrap up class, but bring this around to applying that level of empowerment to everything. Like, I am certain that people have a need for their lives to be improved even beyond physicality. There is Personal freedom, like freedom to say and do and be your real self. Financial freedom, the capability to go where you want to go, purchase what you want to purchase, live where you want to live, and be around the people that you want to be around. And then cognitive freedom, it's freedom from propaganda, and the freedom from these intrusive minds that have been trying to put themselves into our minds. So all of those things need to be achieved at the same time. The healing of your body is concurrent with the healing of human society and the restoration of, I would call it, your light body, all of our light bodies. Like, so when you have your light body activated, like lies are very obvious. You don't lie and you can't be around lies and you incinerate lies. And most of our world is made out of lies. So our whole world is going to change a lot because these lies can't even bear to be in your presence. And those who contain lies, people who embrace and identify with lies and false light, also will not be able to be here. And I will also tell you that, like, a lot of the problems that you have in your world are from people. They're not just abstractions. They're from specific people. And if those specific people weren't here, your world would be a lot better. So, um, for this level of restoration and transformation in your own personal life, please know that it can and will happen. You need to do the whole entire environment or external context in order to really have that improved. Think about something like a dolphin that is at SeaWorld. You can't just be like, okay, dolphin, you're free. Open up your cage. And like all the water is like squashing out, and the dolphin is like, oh, like, I don't think I like being free. Like, you have to put the dolphin in the ocean and be like, here, now you're free. This is what humanity needs to. You need to have the optimized circumstances for your freedom, not just be like, okay, like, look, you're free, be self-responsible now. So there might be a connective set of events from who you are now, Michelangelo, to who you are in freedom, and know that you, just like a truck took the dolphin out of the ocean and stuck him in a cage at SeaWorld. We need to take the dolphin back to the ocean and put him there to be free. You need to get back into alignment with your optimized timelines in order to be free. And that's part of this liberation experience. So also, like, some efforts are made by you and some efforts are about the fixing of the context that you find yourself in. And myself and a lot of, or let me say, myself and larger scale consciousness is working on that right now. So you do the things that are inside of within your capabilities, and larger consciousness will do the things that are outside of your capabilities. Joyce says, Professor Aurora, I just have to say, you are my favorite teacher in the whole wide world, and I appreciate and love you and Miss Cheeky too. That is the most beautiful thing. Thank you so much. I am so uplifted by that. I really, really thank you. I'm very hard on myself sometimes because I always try to speak perfectly and say everything in a way that is totally correct and makes perfect sense. And I don't always do it. So thank you so much for all of that beautiful recognition. I tried very, very hard. And thank you very, very much for being a wonderful student in my class. Thank you to everybody who is a student in my class. Thank you for people who have come here, every week, year after year, and for people who ask wonderful questions. And thank you for allowing me to speak, like, to reverberate in your mind. Thank you for internalizing the things that I say to you and that reverberate in your mind. And I am a good, like, trustworthy person. If you think about what your journey will be like either in as your consciousness goes forward, like, I don't expect you to die, but just like as your consciousness goes forward, I truly, truly hope that the important things that I've said here, like not my silliness and jokes, but maybe my jokes, but only the really funny ones, but the important stuff you will remember. And you'll come to your moments in your journey and be like, oh, Aurora warned me about this. Like, don't fall into this. And instead go in this direction. Or that you will know what to do during a critical moment because I was able to tell you about that. Or that you are inspired to keep going, even while it is still a very corrupt and imbalanced world, because you know that you're going to get into a situation where things are much better, and you're not going to have to die in order to just be like, escape or be in profound despair or go into the worst whatever garbage bin of consciousness. No, you have very many good options and an enormous amount of potential And then I think the good news is that it is about your engagement with yourself and with the consciousness around you that explores that potential. So, of the good things of any religion or philosophy that is from Earth's history, the positive stuff is when it tells you that it is a response of your own merit, your own effort, your own self-cultivation, that when you reach liberation or divine connection or the remembrance of yourself as God, that it's because you worked hard, you bicycled up a mountain, you did a good effort, and then you made it there, and you are deserving of the restoration and good things that you experience. And I think that that is actually very, very true. Mary Helen says, I think it's funny when you get mad. Thank you so much. Thank you for thinking that that is funny. I'm sorry. I have actually real challenges with technology. So please continued apologies for sometimes when I have to touch technology or if the wrong button does the wrong thing. And then I have a lot of challenges. And then also apologies for getting so mad because someone texted me and distracted me during class. I'm very sheepish about that, but thank you for loving me. Okay. So very briefly, oh, and Elmer says, very inspiring. Beautiful comment here. And Elmer, thank you for being part of our classes. Very inspiring and helps us propel faster up for liberation. Much love to you. Thank you. Much love to you too. So just as a very, very quick reminder, next week, the 24th is Christmas Eve. I will do, will I do class next week? I actually might not do class next week. So actually, no. What I'm going to do is say, since most people are going to be very busy with holidays and I'm getting busy to travel and go for my New Year's Eve retreat and we will be dancing with everyone, we are pressing pause on class. All right. So this is, I will see you all next year. That's my joke. And we are going to be doing lesson 18. So that's not, so I make crazy faces while I'm looking at the calendar too. Not January 7th, because I'll still probably be getting back, but January 14th. So we will do January 14th will be the big marathon Galactic History event. So for people that like to plan extra time for that day. And then I'll see over the next couple of days, I keep on intending to upload my newest music that's called Aftermath. I have it on Bandcamp, but I haven't uploaded it officially on the other places yet. I want to do a listening party. I want to do that. I want to show you some of my new clothing projects. Like I want to show you cool stuff. So I'll see if I have time to be able to do some fast casual videos about that over the next couple of weeks. All right. But what I would like to say is I'm wishing everybody a Merry Christmas. Also, I needed to give the energetic weather report, and I didn't do that at the beginning of this class, but we have one more big destabilization before we go through the portal that is December 21st. So we're like accelerating. If it feels like you're like, the day is going by fast, you're getting faster. You're accelerating into a tiny portal that's like this big and you're going to go through it. But before you go through it, you have one more big giant pile of doo-doo to get through, and that's going to be December 24th, 25th, and 26th. Okay? Hooray! Just in time for the holidays. A giant pile of doo-doo to get through. But once you get through that, then you will have this time of positive potentials for the time between now and New Year's, and that's when we're doing our Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance. I hope that you will add your good potentials to everything that we're doing to be able to bring forward a better world. And we dance for ourselves and for everyone. So please, if you know anybody who is needing healing, in distress, or just the general world that needs to be improved, please dance where you are and add that goodness into the world. Mary Ellen says, have fun in Sedona. Thank you. We absolutely will. And Pedro says, my last love the lasagna of the year. Yes, exactly. So quite amazing and beautiful. And also for the Tuesday morning dance class, we just completed a big giant chapter. And so then I will be starting the next dance group movement probably in January. Also, wait, I'll see if I am able to dance on the 23rd, but I will not dance on the 30th. So I might do one more dance with everyone on the 23rd, or maybe I will be busy preparing, but we will see. But it's also the end of that. So you have a lot of big endings, a lot of big kachunkas, a lot of parentheses that are coming into completion. And then you'll have a brief weird time where you're like, ah, okay, the end has started, the end has ended, the beginning hasn't started yet. What are we doing right now? And that's when you plant seeds for the future. And you can be as lavish as you need to or want to be. You can envision like a mansion, a gold-plated mansion, or whatever you would like. Like, please don't be lavish. Don't be afraid to ask for good things for yourself, but also please ask for things that are so valuable that they're not even available in stores. All right. Like spinal cords and other forms of, profound healing and healing for our world and the creation and generation and sustenance of the type of world that is usually reserved for the motivation to go to heaven. Like that you could have that in our world. And that's what is at the very end of my notes. I actually will just read this one part. So some of my notes, oh God. Um, this very last part, the connection between the flying rainbow lasagna and eternal life, the connection between flying rainbow lasagna and Christhood and eternal life. So that is the best thing to end upon. The best news that I have, flying rainbow lasagna means that you don't have to die. Instead of being like Christians being like, we're insulted, like we want to die. Who are you to don't have to die? Like, well, actually, like you don't have to die. And flying rainbow lasagna means that, you have potentials and possibilities that weren't available to you before. So the connection between achieving Christhood, flying rainbow lasagna, and not having to die. I think these are all fantastic and positive good things. And Rebecca says, thank you. So very grateful to be part of this community. My heart sings the song of one true God, and I share it with all of you. Thank you very much. It's very beautiful. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Thank you for your encouragement and for allowing me to sometimes speak in a way that's not perfect. And try to figure out what my brain is trying to say. Thank you very much for that. And I look forward to seeing you in class next year. Okay. And of course, I will send out a little information by email so that way you know when to expect the next class to be. Thank you. Have a beautiful holiday. Spend time with people that you love, or if you don't love people, spend time on your own. And thank you.